government agency called Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. You can see that they're pretty well funded, around $10 billion a year. I looked up this chart because ICE has been in the news recently.
ICE agents detained some 1,600 illegal migrants on Tuesday.
Raided this meatpacking plant.
Rounding up workers.
20 to
more than 100 people
detained without explanation.
put into handcuffs.
And taken to detention centers.
ICE is a kind of immigration police. And long before Donald Trump, at the very beginning of when ICE was created in the early 2000s, the agency had a very ambitious goal: to deport everyone they possibly could, to, quote, remove all removable aliens. They share the same parent agency as Customs and Border Protection, which focuses on the border. ICE focuses on all of this: the interior.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials wasting little time under the new administration.
Arrested nearly 1,200.
Large-scale immigration
building was surrounded by federal agents.
Different targets on this
immigrants
one.
detained over this past
9 single adult females, 4 female heads of household.
5 members of his congregation detained.
And if you look at this line, you will see that indeed ICE arrests have spiked since Trump took office.
In the Win with Zinn sweepstakes, you can get a chance to win $100,000. But there's more than one way to win with Zinn. Here's how it works. For 5 weeks until November 24th, we're giving away a total of 5,000 premium prizes. Each time you enter, you also earn a chance at the $100K grand prize. Enter every week to boost your...
And a big way that the new Trump administration has sold this surge in deportations is crime.
Murderers, drug dealers,
violent criminals, and vicious gangs.
We have to get all of these criminals.
known terrorists.
A lot of the public messaging from the new Trump administration focuses on immigrants who are criminals.
The American people don't want these criminals and dangerous individuals on our streets anymore.
But let's separate this line into 3. This color is immigrants who are convicted criminals. This line is arrests of people with pending criminal charges. And this line is ICE arrests of people with no criminal record at all. This is the steepest line of all. So, what's going on here? That's what I'm setting out to understand by making this video. What does all of this represent? And if Trump has been able to do all of this with ICE's current budget, what happens next year when Congress has set ICE's budget to look more like this?
A major infusion of funding to carry out President Trump's deportation agenda.
Most intense spending spree on immigration enforcement in modern history.
Of the United States of America.
More than most other countries' military budgets.
What does ICE plan to do with all that new taxpayer funding?
To understand all of this, I've been talking to immigration experts and lawyers. I've reached out to people in my community who are facing deportation and the threat of being detained by ICE.
Yo pedí permiso en mi trabajo. A mi jefe le dije que no podía ir a trabajar porque no sé, me sentía tan insegura, con miedo.
When I lived in Tijuana for 2 years, I heard a lot of stories of people who were deported. I've worked closely with people here in the United States who are undocumented or unauthorized, but who have been here for decades, and I wanted to understand their perspective as well. There's so much more to the immigration system than ICE, and eventually I want to make a broader video about immigration in America more generally. But today I'm focusing on ICE. Now, reporting on this is really challenging right now because it's so divisive and emotional and charged. Clarity and multiple perspectives is vital, which is why I am partnering with today's sponsor, Ground News, who I want to tell you briefly about. I use their app and site to pull thousands of stories from all around the world and synthesize them all in one place. I can search a story and then sort it by political bias, by reliability, by who owns the outlet. News coverage these days is fragmented and confusing, and often the loudest voice wins. And so having a place where you can synthesize all the news stories in one place and see like an X-ray vision of what's behind these stories is incredibly useful. This is one reason why Ground News was recognized by the Nobel Peace Center for improving media literacy. And if you want to see how it worked on this story specifically, just watch what happens when I type in ICE. Ground News shows me all of these different stories and how they're covering them and where they fall on the political spectrum. I can quickly see that a right-leaning outlet like Fox News, which is owned by the Murdoch family, frames their headline about Trump's new funding and recruitment for ICE as crucial. It emphasizes the defend the homeland components of the recruiting campaign. And on the same screen, I can see that NBC News, which tends to lean left, frames this recruiting campaign as poaching local officers and how it's provoking anger among sheriffs of local police departments. Both of these headlines are true. They're just framed differently, and oftentimes the framing of a controversial issue can have more impact than the facts themselves. Ground News allows me to get this kind of transparency into coverage unlike anywhere else. There's no corporate influence on Ground News. It's completely funded by subscribers like you and me. There's a bunch of other features and tools in Ground News. When you get the Vantage plan, which is one I have, you can get all of those. And Ground News is giving 40% off on that plan to viewers of the channel. Just go to my link. It's groundnews.com/Johnny Harris. You can also just conveniently scan this QR code if that's easier for you. I think it's like $5 a month in total, so pretty affordable to be informed. I'm really grateful that Ground News exists, that they support our channel, that they are helping create more transparency in media during this wild time. Okay, with that, let's get back to the video, and I want to introduce you to a friend of mine.
I was born in El Salvador. I came to California in '93. Okay. I was 8 years old.
That's Daniel. He's about my age. For most of his life, he's lived in the United States, actually right here in the DC area where I live.
I learned to do carpentry. I learned electrical, I learned HVAC. I started my own company. Well, I had up to 4 employees working for me.
Daniel's story is one of thousands that are happening right now in this country, and we're gonna get back to it once we better understand the mechanics of our system. For now, I'll tell you that this summer, Daniel was deported.
When Trump was saying that he was gonna deport illegal criminals, it really didn't bother me because I was legal and I felt like I was gonna be okay.
His story will make a lot more sense once we understand the basics of how immigration enforcement works in this country.
How does Freshpet make healthy food for dogs? The same way you make healthy food for people. Start here.
On farms like mine.
Plant the seeds, tend to the soil, feed the animals. Harvest fresh.
Ship it fresh.
And craft it into recipes that are vet developed and protein packed. Then when people tell you,
we can't put dog food in our fridges,
you build your own. Because your dog deserves fresh, healthy food just like you. Freshpet. Healthy food fresh from the fridge.
Hello and welcome to SkyVia Tutorials. In today's video, we will check how to sync data between Snowflake and Salesforce with no coding. For this tutorial, we chose 2 scenarios: replication of the leads data from Salesforce to Snowflake for future data analysis, and the reverse ETL of the data from
Immigrants. Often they are talked about in one of 2 statuses: foreign-born people who are here legally or illegally, and that there's some clear line between them. But that's not actually how it is. There's actually a whole rainbow of types of statuses that immigrants can have. Some people born outside the United States become US citizens. Naturalized is what we call it. And then on the other side, you have undocumented or unauthorized immigrants, here without permission. And then you have all of this in between, like immigrants who lack documentation but do have the government's permission to be here. They're typically waiting for some sort of court hearing, like the many people seeking asylum. There are other people who are in the United States that are here legally but temporarily, like for example, someone here on a visa. And then there's lawful permanent residents. They're not citizens, but they're allowed to be here long term. We call them green card holders. And by the way, we kind of made up this visual. This is a simplified, fairly simplistic version of all of the different immigration statuses. It's actually way more complicated and convoluted. Anyone who's in the middle of that process knows that immigration in the United States is a fairly broken and out-of-date thing, even for those who are here legally. And everyone kind of agrees on that. Republicans, Democrats. Congress may change it someday with new laws, but for now, we're stuck with old laws, and it's up to the president to enforce those laws in different ways. But for now, we'll work with this, because Daniel, for most of his life, was here on this chart. He was a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder. So that's the first big thing that is happening here in the new administration, is that while immigration enforcement has focused a lot on these illegal statuses, people up here also have a place in this new crackdown. Each group here represents millions of people. And the people down here that don't have legal status represent somewhere between 10 and 15 million people. Let's answer the first big question, which is, how did most of these people end up living here? Now, we could start this story anywhere in American history because America is a story of just waves of immigrants. But for our purposes here, let's start in like the early 20th century, early 1900s. Look at the western United States. There's a lot of land out here, but there are not a lot of people.
The need for workers for the economy is a persistent theme in American immigration history.
So once or twice a year, the farms here need a lot of workers to help them harvest and process a huge amount of food that's grown here. That need for seasonal temporary labor is filled by Mexican workers for a lot of decades. Laborers who come up just to work for the season and then return back home after their work is done. And for a lot of the 20th century, this is actually legal. The US encourages it with a specific program because they know that the US economy needs it. This flow of seasonal migrant labor, mostly from Mexico, fuels entire industries in the United States who rely on workers coming from Mexico to do this essential low-wage work and then returning back home for the season. If you live in the United States and you eat lettuce in the winter, it is almost 100% certain that that lettuce came from around here, and it was very likely harvested by migrant labor. Okay, so let's get back to the early 20th century. There are Mexican workers coming up for the season, and this is totally legal. But then in the 60s, that changes. Congress does its job. It used to do its job back in the 60s and pass laws that negotiated and compromised and actually bipartisan laws. And they end this program. In part because labor unions and rights groups saw it as abusive and exploitative.
There was a lot of very well documented and well-known labor abuse that took place.
And partly because some economists were arguing that bringing in all of this low-wage labor made wages lower for everyone, and that instead American labor should go fill those farm jobs.
The constant flow of foreign workers into the available pool of domestic workers.
And so the Congress doesn't actually implement any immigration law that will allow low-wage workers to come into the country legally. They want Americans to fill those jobs. And the Congress is kind of running a big experiment, a big test. If they make this practice of migrant labor that is so ingrained into the American economy by this point, if they make it illegal, will people stop coming? Will those jobs actually be filled by Americans? And the answer is no. This flow of workers continues. The need for these workers continues, and so the flow of those workers continues. The difference now is that it's not authorized by the government. And a lot of them, instead of go back and forth across this border, which is now technically illegal, end up just staying in the United States.
So what happens is that the undocumented population grows, starting loosely speaking in early 1970s.
By the end of the 80s, there's 4 million undocumented people living here. Many of them are filling the demand for jobs that brought them here in the first place. A very real demand on farms, in construction, in restaurants. 4 million undocumented people living in the United States. Congress sees this as a growing problem, so they decide to get tough on immigration.
Should we use an HMO or a POS or
PPO?
Maybe add an FS?
Or HRA.
We can add an HSA.
Go ahead.
I think we should try PHP.
When it comes to health coverage, there's only 3 letters you need to know. PHP.
Congress wants to enforce immigration limits in a firm, unambiguous manner. They passed laws in the 80s and 90s to physically fortify this long, porous border. Physical barriers, more guards, incentives to leave, disincentives to enter. Okay, so this first test that they ran back in the 60s didn't work. Will this work? And the answer is no.
People say, "Oh, this might be my last chance to cross. I better cross, and I better as soon as I can. I better bring my family with me."
In fact, more people come because, again, there's jobs here. There's jobs to be filled. There are corporations who have become totally reliant on these workers.
Profits
So
gotta
soon,
go up,
some of
gotta
these
produce.
migrant workers are now not so migrant. They're having families here. They're living lives. They're paying taxes. They're integrating into communities. They're American. By the end of the 2000s, there's 10 million, but they don't have legal status. They're not technically authorized. And in fact, no matter how important they are to certain industries, there's no path for them to gain legal status. They're in this limbo. Look at this chart. These are farm workers in the United States. These two lines are for people who are either born in the United States or legally here. And this line are unauthorized immigrants, the people we've been talking about this whole time. Now watch what happens. The undocumented population is around 3 to 4% of the entire American population. But look at how fundamental they are to just the crop farm work industry. This is the food we eat being processed by people who are not authorized to be in the country. Oh, and by the way, it's not just agriculture. Landscaping, household workers, laundry services. Again, 3 to 5% of the population, but a quarter of this workforce.
This is an example of a gap between what the legal system provides and what seems to be what the economy needs to function at a high level.
I once worked at a restaurant as a line cook here in DC. It was my first job when I got out of college, actually. And every single person in that kitchen was an unauthorized immigrant who worked usually 2 jobs cooking food for restaurants. Now, I want to dwell on one point that I kind of mentioned but is incredibly important, which is that normally policy would recognize this. Oh, there's a need for low-wage work in the United States. Let's make a legal pathway so people can come in and we can sort of control this. But immigration in the United States is kind of like this room with 4 doors. Each door is a legal path into the United States. If you're a high-wage worker who has like a advanced degree or whatever, you can get in through this door, though that's a nightmare in and of itself. You can get sponsored by family who are here legally. You can play the lottery, where less than 1% of those apply get status. And then there's the asylum refugee door for those fleeing danger or persecution. What a government that oversees an economy that is reliant on migrant labor might do is make a 5th door, a door for low-wage workers who do all of these vital jobs that we all rely on. But there is no door. There's no door for construction workers, farm workers, restaurant workers, hotel cleaners.
Most Americans think that if you're a good person who's been following the law relatively well, paying your taxes, and contributing to the community, can just simply apply for citizenship.
No, that is not how it works.
The lawful pathways to come to this country have never really been able to satisfy the demand for workers. And so there are workarounds for that.
So today we have this huge population of people, over 10 million, who are in limbo. They've lived here for a long time, they work here, they fulfill important jobs. They're only about, again, 3 to 4% of the population. And by the end of the 90s, remember that chart that showed how reliant our food system is on this labor? Instead of focusing on mass deportation and trying to kick everyone out, there was actually some political appetite to give these people a pathway to be here legally, a recognition that we need them. Let's let them not live in the shadows anymore. George Bush was our guy on this.
Every immigrant, by embracing these ideals, makes our country more, not less, American.
George Bush was in the middle of sort of negotiating sort of a new comprehensive immigration reform that would have legalized a lot of the undocumented immigrants at the time, greater pathways for labor migration.
It was looking very hopeful for these 10+ million people in limbo, but then something happened.
A plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
All of a sudden, it became impossible to talk about immigration without thinking about security issues.
It's now my privilege to sign the Homeland Security Act of 2002.
The 19 men who carried out 9/11 were in the United States legally. And so now there was a microscope on how the immigration system let this happen because it was so insecure. All of Bush's efforts towards make America more American, all of that
Was
took a
it
massive
family
beat.
And so there's
sponsored or
this
what?
language of criminality.
Or was that before they had
gets
that system?
attached to immigration,
got it by
and especially
lottery?
undocumented immigration.
Congress creates this new department, it's Homeland Security. They get rid of this benign-sounding Immigration Naturalization Service, and in its place, Customs
Trying to
and
even think
Border
how to word it.
Protection, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The country was reeling after 9/11, and a more militarized, security-focused version of
Actually could be pretty
immigration,
big.
border protection, was one of the ways we felt more safe. When we decided to cover this story about immigration, I reached out to all of you to ask what angles you're most curious about. What do you feel like you're not getting from the news? And I heard a lot of you tell me that you feel overwhelmed, confused, even sort of anxiety induced by the news, by your news feed. I feel that too in today's news cycle. This is why my team and I have been working on creating a new space to interact with these topics that is more about understanding and dialogue than it is about the kind of attention-grabbing, anxiety-inducing nature of our current media. This is
Oh
what news
no,
is. Our main
I
goal
fat-fingered
is
it.
to make our reporting more transparent and to make your experience consuming our journalism more empowering, more focused on understanding and less focused on fear and sensationalism. Help us change the way journalism is done and consumed. That's kind of the goal. And thanks to everyone who contributed your thoughts and questions to this story to make it better. All right, it's after 9/11. What happens next? So ICE is created after 9/11, and this is when we start to expand the use of detention centers, like immigration jails. Wait, but I thought ICE just deported people. If someone is found to be here illegally, unauthorized, why not just deport them? And the answer is the US Constitution. The Fifth Amendment, which says that every person here is entitled to due process of the law. Every person, not every citizen. Every person gets a trial. They get their day in court to represent themselves, and we got to abide by it. It's the rule of law here in the United States. Though that's kind of being stress tested at the moment, as we will see in a minute. Anyway, my point is that detention centers are, in many cases, where migrants awaiting their hearing and their trials are held. They're jails. Did you know that there's a difference between prisons and jails? Jails are just meant to hold people temporarily while they await some process. Prisons are meant to punish people who've been convicted for a crime. Detention centers are kind of supposed to be like jails. They're supposed to be temporary and not a punishment. Okay, so now we are post 9/11, ICE exists, it's a new era of immigration. And since the creation of these agencies, Congress hasn't passed any major immigration reforms. It's been up to the president to enforce the laws that exist, that were made all those years ago. So let's see how Obama chooses to do this.
I believe that we can be a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants.
That quote kind of sums up how Obama did it. He wanted to pass laws around immigration and actually make like some legal form for people to have a pathway to citizenship or to permanent status, but he also wanted to show that he wasn't soft on immigration. And in fact, he soon becomes known as the deporter-in-chief, a nickname that he earns by deporting a lot of people. He deported a lot of people just at the border who were coming, but then he also used ICE to deport people from the interior. And Obama was really all about focusing on criminals, people who were actually like a threat to society.
And let's be honest, tracking down, rounding up, and deporting millions of people isn't realistic. And that's why we're going to keep focusing enforcement resources on actual threats to our security. Felons, not families. Criminals, not children.
This is something I didn't know before reporting this story, and it's super important. During this time, the principal way that ICE would find people to deport wasn't just going in and like raiding a workplace.
In order to understand ICE operations, you have to understand that historically speaking, for the last 20, 30 years, the primary source of ICE arrests has been people who are held in local jails, or state jails or federal jails.
ICE would rely on the local police in some town. There might be a lot of undocumented immigrants in this town, some of whom have criminal records. But this one got arrested and is at the local police station.
Hey, we're Summit City Rental coming at you from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Actually, we're just right outside Fort Wayne, Indiana, called Woodburn, Indiana. But we've got you covered from construction sites to special events to your RV camper.
They call ICE. ICE goes over, picks them up. But over time, local police stations started to push back on this. They're like, hey, we're local law enforcement. We're not like immigration enforcement. It created all this mistrust in these communities where now people without status would be afraid of the local police because a small run-in with the police could mean deportation. So some police departments stop playing ball when they have someone in custody who doesn't have immigration status. These are called sanctuary cities. I'm gonna be totally frank, I used to think sanctuary cities were like cities where immigrants could come and there would be zero like immigration enforcement at all, and that like ICE couldn't come into. I now understand it for what it is, which is they're cities where local law enforcement treats undocumented immigrants like anyone else. They don't hold on to undocumented immigrants for even longer just so that ICE can come pick them up. If they can make bail, they get to go, just like anyone else would. So Obama's deporting tons of people, and meanwhile, there's a larger conversation happening around immigration. Part of that conversation led by this guy.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems. You can call it whatever the hell you want. They're gone.
Trump runs a campaign that is highly antagonizing of immigrants, really framing them as criminals, and he wins. One of the first things he does is he changes how ICE can arrest people. Instead of them focusing on people who are in police custody already or who have a criminal record, ICE is now authorized to pick up anyone who they find along the way who might be here illegally. This is called collateral enforcement.
Where you have officers going after people not because they are a high priority, but because there are more of them than the people that are high priorities.
This is kind of, I think, when a lot of us learned what ICE even was. ICE raids become much more visible under the first Trump presidency.
Nearly 24 law enforcement agents surrounded this suburban Texas home.
Raided convenience stores, checking papers.
Arrest more than 100 people at once.
ICE officials said operations like these are a harbinger of what's to come.
The other big theme of Trump's first presidency is how he got shot down by the courts over and over. He tried to do this Muslim ban, and the judicial branch, which is the courts, found it illegal, and he tried to tweak it, and they found it illegal, and he wasn't able to fully exercise his vision on immigration because a lot of what he wanted to do was technically illegal. He tried to cut federal funding from these sanctuary cities. Once again, it's found illegal by the courts. He's not allowed to do it. He tries to end the program called DACA, which gives protected status to a few 100,000 people who came here as children, but once again, blocked by the courts. So you can kind of see that Trump V1 was not very successful in this sort of widespread crackdown on immigration that they envisioned because they didn't have their legal house in order. They were pursuing things that were just blatantly illegal. But they would learn from this. Trump's policy architects would learn from all of these mistakes, and they would be ready next time. But here comes Biden.
The President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Biden wins, and boom, look at this graph. People are coming to the border, partly because the notoriously anti-immigrant president is now out of office. And that's what this chart is.
You had people showing up the border truly believing that Biden had said any migrant could come here, but also because COVID destabilized the economic situation in a lot of South America. And the United States survived COVID economically better than any other country in the world.
Many of them are deported, but for logistical and diplomatic and legal reasons, many are released into the United States while they wait for a hearing. Remember this status? At the same time, Biden also keeps a Trump policy that expels many new immigrants without even processing them, many of whom start making repeat crossings.
You had large numbers of people just crossing the border over and over and over again until they could get through. So the rate of repeat border crossings skyrocketed.
So a lot of these numbers are actually juiced by thousands of people getting turned back multiple times, the same person, but they just keep coming.
Some say the new president gave them hope for a life in America.
And these images, this graph, becomes the central tool for Donald Trump's second run for president. The day he almost got assassinated, he's like showing the graph.
Take a look at that. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. It's a massive invasion at our southern border.
The invasion at the border of our country.
Invasion of our country. Where bad things are going to happen.
Check out this poll, which asks Americans if they think that legal immigrants are a, quote, major risk for committing a crime in the United States. In 2019, it's like somewhere between 15 and 20% of people who say that legal immigrants are going to commit a crime. By 2024, it's like double that. Like a third of Americans are now skeptical and afraid of legal immigrants.
We have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. They're having fistfights with our police officers right in the middle of streets.
14,000.
That's so fucking wild to say.
Convicted of homicide.
They're taking over the city. They're taking people's pets and killing them and eating them.
Okay.
All of that, dude. The fact that they never paid any fucking like
of this video
cost
like
for just being fucking unhinged and racist.
Evaluation of the data of the migrant crime connection. Is there a surge in crime committed by unauthorized immigrants, as the news is kind of making?
JD Vance lied about his own fucking state.
Slightly tangential. I'm going to give you the highlights. The answer is there is no question that people who are in this country without authorization sometimes commit crimes. But if you look at the data, not the news stories that are sensational and horrible, but the actual data, you will see something like this.
I know a lot of you are similar to me. You probably chew tobacco. I chewed it in Afghanistan, chewed it in Iraq. I chewed it in the sniper hide. I chewed it before the op. I chewed it pretty much all the time. You see, there's this company out there called Black Buffalo. It's a chewing tobacco alternative. They have cans, long cut, and pouches. They have all of our favorite flavors that we, as chewers, love. Black Buffalo, wintergreen, straight, mint, blood orange, and even peach.
Well, we're here. Zoran Mamdani, the new mayor of New York, Abigail Spanberger, the governor-elect of Virginia, Mikey Sherrill, the governor-elect in New Jersey. We'll go through all the results, what it means for the country, and that shocking socialist speech from Zoran Mamdani last night. First, you may know, here at the Daily Wire, we don't always agree, actually. Friendly Fire is the show where Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and I get together to disagree live for the entire internet to see and comment on what could possibly go wrong. Well, a new episode of Friendly Fire premieres in 2 weeks on Daily Wire Plus. And this time, we're also going to world premiere the official trailer for the Pendragon Cycle, The Rise of the Merlin, only on Friendly Fire November 19th, 7 p.m. Eastern on Daily Wire Plus. You did it! You really finally did it, you maniacs! You blew it up! Damn you! Well,
I'm pretty sure he's gonna go fucking talk about
studies
Zoran or some
that
shit.
Undocumented immigrants are far less likely to commit crimes than native-born Americans. They're half as likely to be in jail. They commit violent crime at a meaningfully lower rate. In fact, there's even pretty robust studies that show that an increase in the foreign-born population is associated with less property and violent crime in a community. I'm going to put the link to the studies here
These are
and
both
some of
so
the stats
good.
in our sources so that you can go evaluate them for yourself. Okay, but
the
most
Omni.
Americans aren't looking at the data. They're watching this.
Just get
A
tanky
murder
right here.
committed by a man in the country illegally from Peru.
An undocumented farm worker.
Another undocumented immigrant accused in a gruesome crime.
So Trump rides this wave. It's like his central message in the 2024 presidential campaign. And he makes a big promise.
The largest deportation operation in American history. We have
And then he wins.
Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States.
I will not let you down. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before.
And this time, his people are ready.
In the first Trump administration, they kept losing. They had poorly drafted rules that judges struck down. And you learn from failure.
On his first day in office, Trump declares a national emergency on the border. He sends the military there, he freezes the refugee program, he suspends asylum, he revives an 18th century war law to justify deporting gang members. He makes it way easier to just deport people without due process, which you can do through some loopholing and some like maximalist reading of the law. No hearing. He directs immigration judges to look for anyone who is in this limbo waiting for an asylum hearing and to fast track deny them without a hearing to get them deported faster. He rolls back temporary protected status for a few 100,000 people, tells them it's time to go back to their country. He revokes student visas, and he offers $1,000 for any undocumented immigrant to self-deport. They literally call it a exit bonus, which sounds like a HR corporate America term, which, like, I guess that's not surprising. He says that anyone who is meant to be deported and doesn't go will get a fine that is $1,000 a day. His goal is to deport 1 million people in his first year in office. But he has a problem. This chart. People, unsurprisingly, have stopped coming to the border. Now, remember Obama, the deporter-in-chief? He deported tons of people, 400,000 people at the height. But a huge amount of those people were
like the one
from
I
the
didn't
border.
want. That's
There's barely
tragic.
anyone coming to the border now. So to get his 1 million deportations this year, he needs to focus on the interior, all of this. In other words, he needs ICE.
Federal agents launched raids in one of the first visible signs of President Trump's mass deportation plan.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement will no longer avoid sensitive locations like schools and churches.
Now anyone is fair game for enforcement and to be detained and deported from the U.S.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table.
First things first, he once again revives this authority for ICE to pick up anyone they stumble across when they are doing an operation. Like if they're going after like a drug dealer that they know is an actual criminal, if they find anyone along the way that doesn't have papers and that they have a reasonable discretion to think that that person is gonna flee, they can detain them. But ICE doesn't have enough people for all of this at first. So Trump starts taking people from other agencies, other law enforcement agencies, thousands of federal workers from the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Agency, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the U.S. Marshal Service, thousands of people doing important work of law enforcement now being reassigned to pick up unauthorized immigrants. And where do they turn? Anywhere they can. Restaurants.
Stacking so slow.
And then their faces are covered.
Factories.
Anxious relatives of employees waited for updates.
A child's birthday party, saying that they're targeting gang members, but detaining people as young as 3 years old.
It remains unclear how many of those arrested are actual gang members.
And they're not just focusing on strictly unauthorized, undocumented immigrants. They're arresting green card holders.
He is a legal resident. The agents took him to a cemetery and beat him several times.
They're deporting people to countries that they're not even from. They're deporting people who are following the rules and going to their hearings, who are entitled to due process by the Constitution.
ICE detained 20-year-old Dylan Contreras, a high school student, on May 21st after attending
I'm sure he was a career criminal at 16.
This is the chart of ICE arrests. Here's where Trump takes office. You can see how things spike. And this gets us back to Daniel.
Before him being elected, he was talking about sending all of the illegal criminals back to whatever country they were from. But in my mind, I wasn't illegal. I was legal. So, to be honest with you, I didn't really took it too serious.
In March 2025, Daniel was detained. He was a green card holder, remember? He'd been here since he was a kid. He was a business owner, an employer, but technically, he had a record.
I did get in trouble as a teenager and found a little joint of marijuana in the vehicle.
So even though this was decades ago, didn't matter. He gets put into a detention center that is run by a private company while he awaits a hearing.
Food is really horrible. The milk is already spoiled. Like as soon as you open it, like you can smell it. Pieces of bread, it had mold. I lost 35 pounds in less than 2 months. Like mentally, they were breaking me down. I said, I feel like I'm gonna die.
Immigration jails are wretched places to be, so much so that I don't think it's possible to have a fair immigration court process while you're detained, because so many people just don't have the psychological fortitude to maintain that for the months it takes to fight your case.
The showers were nasty. It would be flies, mosquitoes all over. The facilities are dirty. They don't give you no sheet covers. You sleep on the floors, on the open ground, not no mattress. The officers would tell me, hey, listen, they tell us that you guys don't have no rights.
Now, hold on, due process still exists. Like, Trump hasn't destroyed the Constitution, Daniel had a really good case for being here. He had a green card. His wife is an American citizen.
I could have fought. I spent so much money on my lawyer, and I could have stayed there and fought for a year.
But this is actually the most pernicious part of the whole story. Even though he could have fought his case in front of a judge and probably won, his lawyer told him that to just work through that process would take months, maybe even longer than a year. But things were so bad in this detention center that he calculated that this was an unbearable amount of time.
The government and ICE know very, very well that it is in fact so punishing and awful for people to endure that they will often be forced into giving up their rights and simply agreeing to be deported.
The living conditions were so bad that I basically asked to get deported myself.
I talked to Daniel right after he had arrived to El Salvador, after being detained and then deported.
I'm still trying to adapt to the heat over here and the way people talk, because everywhere I go, they know that I'm not from here.
And I started to get really curious why he was a target. Green card holder, business owner, and then I put it together. It comes down to the numbers.
Keeping transmissions alive has become our art form. If you haul heavy, live where it's hot, or climb serious grades, chances are you're
Even after this huge initial crackdown right after Trump took office, they still weren't hitting their numbers. This is like way too hard. This is when Stephen Miller, who's seen as the architect of Trump's immigration crackdown, gives ICE a quota.
We are looking to set a goal of a minimum of 3,000 arrests for ICE every day.
3,000 arrests a day. I don't actually know if that's a lot or little. I wanted to put this into perspective. So let's just sort of compare it to something else. Like New York's police department, they're pretty big. They probably do a lot of arrests a day. Well, it turns out they arrest about 700 people per day, and they have about 36,000 officers. This is officers, this is arrests. ICE has about 6,000 officers focused on their deportation efforts, and they have to arrest 3,000 people per day. Okay, that's a pretty big number.
And what we understand is that the pressure those line agents are feeling to make as many arrests as they possibly can is unimaginable.
So starting this summer, just a couple months ago from when I'm recording this, we started to see the results of that quota, of this pressure.
ICE detained him because they thought he was part of the protest and he was just driving through.
Why are you doing this?
The woman was arrested in front of her children as she was about to take them to school.
The chaotic face-off between federal agents outside the facility.
They broke his car window right there, pepper sprayed him in the car.
Let's go back to this graph that we started the video with. Remember our three colors: convicted criminals, people charged but not convicted, and then no criminal charges. That's this bottom line. Trump takes office here, all of the lines go up. Stephen Miller gives ICE their new quota here, and look which line goes up. To meet these quotas, ICE is leaning further and further into finding anyone they can justify deporting. And just recently, these lines crossed. Okay, but here comes the problem that we maybe could have predicted if we were listening to the first half of this story, which is the US economy needs these people. There are industries that rely on their work. And business owners, corporations, a key part of Trump's fans, start to get really angry that Trump is raiding their workplaces and deporting their workforce. So here he is coming out with a Truth Social post saying that his aggressive policies are taking very good long-time workers away from them, with those jobs being, quote, almost impossible to replace. Like, if you thought I was being, like, exaggerating about how vital these people are to certain industries, Donald Trump himself is corroborating that. Almost impossible to replace. That same day, there's an email that goes out to ICE supervisors telling them to stop it with the worksite enforcement operations. Stop with the worksite raids on agriculture, restaurants, and hotels. And it tells them to stop arresting non-criminal collaterals, jargon for the people you find along the way when you actually have a target. Let's see what happens next to our graph. Well, this line, arrests of immigrants without a criminal record, slows but continues to go up. They still have to meet their quota, and everyone is still a target.
Incluso
me despierto a veces toda así con el corazón latiendo y le digo a mi esposo, yo creo que nos vinieron a buscar.
I talked to Maria, not her real name, who is one of these people that are now a target. She's been here for decades, she's raised a family here, she works, but now her life has been made impossibly anxious.
Ahorita sí es un caos completo porque, digamos, al salir, por ejemplo, yo tenía la sensación como estar vigilado, como perseguido.
Because now Maria is going through a massive rebranding by this administration.
You are, by definition, a criminal, and so therefore you are subject to deportation.
For years, this population was seen as necessary and legally allowed to enter and work. And then for decades, the government kind of just turned a blind eye, knowing that we needed them. But now, they are seen as criminals. Yes, there's the talk of the worst of the worst.
The American people don't want these criminals and dangerous individuals on our streets anymore.
But it's not about that. I mean, look at this line. No criminal record. The administration is undergoing a reassociation to rebrand this giant population of people as every one of them a criminal, every one of them fair game to be detained and deported.
Le soy sincera que no he dormido. Digamos, por ratos duermo, por ratos no. Mi hija, la mayor, ella me dice, mami, no te preocupes, me dice, si nos tenemos que ir, pues nos vamos. Pero la verdad, soy honesta que, pues sí, allá están mis padres y todo, pero no fue tan fácil estar aquí.
Is this new? Like I was struggling to frame this in history. Like how unprecedented or different is this? And then I found this quote that says, the theory that immigration is responsible for crime, that all newcomers should be regarded with an attitude of suspicion, is a theory that is almost as old as the colonies. Okay, how do you fact check that? But then I realized that this report was written in 1931. Those words were written in 1931. Like even back then, 100 years ago, people knew how powerful of a trick this is, how easy it is to brand outsiders as criminals.
We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from socialist, burdensome leadership.
Families showing up for immigration hearings, being detained by ICE agents right after.
2 people pepper sprayed outside the ICE facility.
Federal agents slamming a 79-year-old business owner to the ground.
A mother to the ground. ICE agents shoot and injure a woman.
Homeland Security says its operations are about immigration laws, not instilling fear.
How does Freshpet make healthy food for dogs? The same way you make healthy food for people. Start here.
On farms like mine.
Plant the seeds, tend to the soil, feed the animals. Harvest fresh.
Ship it fresh.
And craft it into recipes that are vet developed and protein packed. Then when people tell you,
we can't put dog food in our fridges,
you build your own. Because your dog deserves fresh, healthy food just like you. Freshpet. Healthy food fresh from the fridge.
QuickMD connects patients with a doctor online for opioid use disorder. Start medication-assisted treatment backed by science. No judgment, no stigma, and no insurance is required. Take control and talk to a doctor today at quick.md.
So here's where we're at. Congress has just passed this law that will juice ICE's budget. I mean, look at that chart again. We're about to see a much more resourced version of this crackdown. The results will be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives turned upside down. It will mean families ripped apart. It will mean communities ruptured. People who, yes, among them are some criminals, but that's not who they're targeting. I mean, that's at least what their own data says. And instead, an administration that is headed by the son of an immigrant is directing our government to kick out a huge number of people who, as we've seen, are a key part of our economy and our country.
Every immigrant, by embracing these ideals, makes our country more, not less, American.
Es bien frustrante, entonces mis padres me han dicho que mejor me regrese. Estoy entre la espada y la pared, porque sí me gustaría, o sea, como le dijera, ya me acostumbré aquí, pero es que si seguimos así no es vivir una vida.
The only way to really stop migration
is to make the United States no longer a desirable destination for migrants. And as Trump pushes this message of Fortress America, a world in which if you cross illegally, we might send you to be imprisoned in El Salvador on false claims of gang membership, people are not viewing the United States as the beacon of freedom that they once did.
Trump's fun new nuclear threats and what it means for you. The man jailed over Charlie Kirk memes was just freed after a month in jail. The Zoran Mamdani Bill de Blasio scandal shows why healthy skepticism is healthy. And then I got a final awesome thing for you today. But we're talking about all of that and even more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco Show. You daily dive into the news, starting with this. A guy who got arrested over social media posts that he made following Charlie Kirk's death was just released from jail. Because we're talking about Larry Bushart in Tennessee, who got taken into custody on September 22nd, with him just getting released today. So he was in there for over a month. Right, and Larry, he's a retired police officer. He's known to talk politics online and post liberal memes. Right, according to reports, in the days after Charlie was killed, Larry was doing just that, posting a ton on Facebook, including in the comment section of a post in a group called What's Happening in Perry County. And that post was about a vigil to be taking place to honor Charlie in a town called Linden, and Larry posted a slew of memes asking who gives a shit that Charlie died, mocking Cat Pell's Valhalla comment, and more. But also, the one that got him in the most trouble was where he referenced Donald Trump's own words, or there being a photo of Trump's face alongside the quote, "We have to get over it," with a meme noting that Trump did in fact say that one day after a shooting at Perry High School in Iowa. And above that, the meme said, "This seems relevant today." Right, so to most people, it would seem like the meme is suggesting that if Trump is telling people to get over school shootings, then the public should also get over Charlie Kirk. But also a thing here is at the local high school in town there, it was called Perry County High School. And there had also recently been an alleged threat against it. So the Perry County Sheriff claimed that this caused panic, saying that parents and students and teachers were concerned that he was talking about a hypothetical school shooting at the local Perry County High School in Tennessee. And so Larry, he ends up getting charged with threatening mass violence at a school, and he gets held on $2 million bail. With that truly shocking Larry, according to body cam footage published by The Intercept.
This is what they charged him with. Okay. Threatening mass violence at a school.
At a school?
It's referring to a school. I have no idea. That's what they've called us for, and I ain't getting it.
I played on Facebook. That's what I know you look at me. I played on Facebook.
I'm not saying you did or didn't do anything.
No, I did do, but I didn't think you committed a crime.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you did or did not commit a crime.
I may have been an asshole, but
that's not illegal.
Right, and with this, you've had many questioning if this post even caused the mass panic the way the sheriff claimed that it did. With the senior attorney for the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression telling USA Today that he filed open records requests with Perry County schools asking for communications laying out the so-called hysteria that Larry allegedly caused. But they apparently had none, with him explaining. I never heard anything back at all from the county, and all the school said was that the sheriff handled the case and there are no records. And then on top of that, well, some of Larry's other comments actually got traction and responses. That meme one was apparently ignored on Facebook. So when reports of his arrest made local news, many were just confused and argued that the sheriff was violating free speech by arresting Larry. Right? Many thinking that the sheriff, who also posted seeming to grieve Charlie Kirk, willfully misinterpreted Larry's words. Right? And then you had a Facebook page called Justice for Larry Bushart being made in support, calling for him to be freed, condemning the sheriff for the arrest, defending Larry's remarks as not threatening. And then all of it bringing us to yesterday, where we got the news that the charges against Larry had finally been dropped after, again, he had been locked up for a month because of this, with Larry walking free and telling reporters,
"Thanks to all and any supporters out there, and very happy to be going home. I didn't seek to be a media sensation."
And as far as why these charges were all of a sudden dropped, it's not clear right now. Though you do have some noting that it came not long after reporting on the case from The Intercept and News Channel 5 in Nashville brought a ton of attention to the case. Right, and specifically with that, there was an interview that News Channel 5 did with the sheriff of Perry County that caused a ton of outrage. Because you see, in that interview, he continued to say that the arrest was due to public concerns, while also seemingly admitting that he knew Larry wasn't actually threatening the school.
35 days over a meme.
Well, it was a series of posts, but yes, the one post that he made was the one with Donald Trump that got everybody's attention, and was considered threatening. That led people to believe in our county that he's talking about Perry County High School, because it doesn't say Iowa either.
But you also knew this was an existing meme that was already out there on the internet.
Correct.
And so it's clear he's not talking about Perry County High School.
We knew. The public did not know.
So that interview, it doesn't go well, and again, it brings us to today where Larry is out, he is free. But also, like, it can't be dismissed. He was in jail for over a month over this. But hey, that's a story, a little bit of my take, and now, of course, it passed the question off to you. Whether you agree or disagree with me, I'd love to know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions here. But then, next up in the news, Donald Trump just ordered the Pentagon to begin testing nuclear weapons again for the first time since 1992, which was actually really cool news to see after I had just finished A House of Dynamite on Netflix. But we should talk about what this means and how it happened, because he made this announcement just minutes before meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. With Trump writing, the United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office, and then going on to say, because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second and China is a distant third, but will be even within 5 years, and then finally adding, because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Okay, so a few things to mention, a few issues with what he said. One, just to be exact and for the sake of accuracy, the exact number of nuclear weapons held by each country, it's not 100% known. But it's actually Russia that has the most, according to estimates by groups including the Federation of American Scientists and Arms Control Association. Then two, it's not exactly clear why the order was given to the Pentagon when America's nuclear arsenal is maintained by the Department of Energy and a semi-autonomous agency within that's known as the National Nuclear Security Administration. And then three, and this is a big one, neither Russia, China, nor any country on Earth except North Korea have live tested a nuclear weapon in this century. And so with that, it seems like it's possible that Trump's actually conflating the testing of missiles that deliver a nuclear warhead with the testing of the warheads themselves, right? And in that case, this might all actually be a response to Putin announcing earlier this week that Russia had tested a new nuclear-powered cruise missile and an atomic-powered underwater drone, both capable of delivering a nuclear.
We fucking
the big thing,
go
right,
back into a nuclear arms race.
Engineered
I
to
swear to
evade
God.
defense systems being developed by the United States.
We're fucking
Mainly Trump's
looping.
so-called Golden Dome, which the Kremlin sees as an effort to develop first strike capability over Russia. And so actually, you know, with that, I think it's worth noting that like Russia, the U.S. military already regularly tests its own missiles capable of delivering a nuclear payload. We actually tested one just last month. So again, it's not clear right now what starting tests on an equal basis, as Trump said, would really mean in the future. Though you should not take any of that as a reason to dismiss the seriousness of the situation. It's still nukes we're talking about. And even separate from this announcement, I mean, you've had many arguing for a while that we're in the midst of a new nuclear arms race. Because the thing is, Russia and China, they've been aggressively expanding their nuclear stockpile in recent years, and the U.S. has also been spending massively to upgrade its arsenal. And so actually with that, you had Putin signing a bill back in 2023 revoking his country's ratification of the nuclear test ban treaty, claiming that it was necessary to put Russia on equal footing with the United States, which had signed but never ratified the treaty. Right next year, you have the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty between the United States and Russia set to expire. And, like you maybe know, because we actually did a whole deep dive on this subject in the past, a key takeaway on this subject and the situation is that you have experts saying that thanks to models and simulations and other techniques that we have now, there's no point in actually live testing anymore, especially given the potential downside. And so you've had experts saying the goal of conducting a fast-track nuclear test can only be political, not scientific. And actually adding to that, in response to Trump's announcement, you had the head of the Washington-based Arms Control Association calling the president misinformed and out of touch and arguing the U.S. has no technical, military, or political reason to resume nuclear explosive testing, then claiming it would take at least 36 months to resume contained nuclear tests underground at the former test site in Nevada, and adding, by foolishly announcing his intention to resume nuclear testing, Trump will trigger strong opposition in Nevada from all U.S. allies, and it could trigger a chain reaction of nuclear testing by U.S. adversaries and blow apart the nuclear non-proliferation treaty.
No, for
and to that
real.
point, you've
That's
already had the Kremlin
so
warning that if the
kinda
U.S.
basic,
resumes
not
nuclear
gonna
testing,
lie.
Russia would follow suit. And at least for now, Trump really hasn't
It
offered
amazes
any
me how many
clarity about his
times
remarks, only
Trump can
speaking
be
to
like,
reporters and doubling down.
make the absolute wrong decision. Like, that's goes 100% against Econ 101, goes 100% against Foreign Affairs 101.
And then with that, he says that future testing
fucking
will
dive
be
bombs
announced.
it.
So look forward to that, I guess. And then there's more we're going to dive into in just a minute, but first let me say, listen up, right? I'm talking to you right now. And specifically you with that passion project, that side hustle, that list of business ideas that just keep rotting away in your notes app. Let today be the day that you commit to making that thing real. You know, I totally get it. I procrastinated on building my book club website forever. But also, and I kid you not, the DeFranco Book Club, it went from someday to launch in under an hour with today's sponsor, Squarespace. Because it could not be easier to build a site, to showcase things, or start selling content, courses, physical or digital products, whatever you've got in mind. Want to charge a one-time fee, offer a subscription, both? Done and done. And they've got beautiful templates that look like you hired a designer, and their Fluid Engine editor, it lets you drag, drop, customize, no coding, no stress, no excuses. My team even uses Squarespace for our Daily Dip newsletter, where tens of thousands of y'all every day get your PDFs fixed in your inbox. Things that add on to this show, news polls, giveaways, PDF show notes, all run through Squarespace. Right, it went from idea to reality just like that, and your project vision could be next. All you gotta do is take the first step today with a free trial at squarespace.com/Phil, or scan that QR code, right? Today is launch day. And all I ask is when you're ready to go live, just use code Phil to get 10% off and let them know we sent you. But then next up in the news, this Zoran Mamdani Bill de Blasio scandal is kind of fantastic. Because former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio seemed to be a fan of Mamdani. Then you had the Times of London reporting that he was starting to question if Mamdani's policies were actually feasible, and saying, while the ambition is admirable, the cost estimates reportedly exceeding $7 billion annually rest on optimistic assumptions about eliminating waste and raising revenue through new taxes.
Honestly,
He's adding, in my view, the math doesn't hold up under scrutiny, and the political hurdles are substantial. And this was seemingly such a big shift and such a big statement that Andrew Cuomo's team, they picked this up, and they said that de Blasio realized that Mamdani's policies were stuff like free buses. It was just glitter and vines. Except, the little tiny baby issue. Bill de Blasio came out and said he never actually spoke with the Times of London, writing, "I want to be 100% clear, the story in the Times of London is entirely false and fabricated. It was just brought to my attention, and I'm appalled. I never spoke to that reporter and never said those things. Those quotes aren't mine, don't reflect my views," with him later adding that he very much supports Mamdani's policy. And so instantly you had people questioning what the hell happened here, right? Why would a pretty well-respected paper with 240 years of history put out something that's just fake? And well, according to them, it's because they were lied to, and they ended up taking the piece down just 2 hours after it was published, and saying they did this after discovering that a reporter had been misled by an individual falsely claiming to be the former New York mayor, then leading to headlines saying British newspaper duped by someone impersonating former New York City mayor Bill de Blasio. But here's the thing, Bill de Blasio doesn't see it that way, because it turns out there's just another guy in New York with that name named Bill de Blasio. He's a 59-year-old wine importer from Long Island, and he spoke to Semaphore about this situation. And what he claims is that just some reporter from the Times, they hit him up for his opinion about the race, and added, "I never once said I was the mayor. He never addressed me as the mayor, so I just gave him my opinion." With him then pointing out I could have corrected him. It was all in good fun. I never thought it would make it to print. And then it's just kind of a fun cherry on top. His criticism of Mamdani's plan wasn't even his own. Instead, he just went to ChatGPT to figure out what to write. Well, personally, I wish this isn't where the story ended, and it turned out it was actually a third guy named Bill de Blasio who spoke to Semaphore. This unfortunately serves as yet another reminder that you should be skeptical at the first thing that you read, and also everyone in the industry should vet their sources. But then, next up in the news, the cop that shot Sonia Massey was just found guilty for murder, though her family says that's not enough. Because if you don't remember the details, last year, 36-year-old Sonia Massey called 911 in the middle of the night because she thought someone was lurking outside of her house in Springfield, Illinois. But then, two sheriff's deputies responding, one of them being Sean Grayson. And Grayson and the other deputy, they searched the property, and after not finding anyone, they knocked on the door to talk to Sonia. From there, they went inside, they had a cordial conversation. That is, until Grayson saw a boiling pot of water on the stove, and he asked Sonia to take it off the burner. Right, and that is when the body cam footage shows that.
Alright, dude, I've been following this story a little bit. That's so fucking insane.
We are Any Promo, and we help companies and brands just like yours with promotional products and custom giveaways. We know how to help you stand out from the crowd. With the largest selection of promotional products, over 30,000 positive reviews, and rock bottom prices, you can trust us with your next event. So if you're looking to grow your brand, make sales, say thank you, or celebrate an occasion, let Any Promo help make it special.
LegalZoom makes it simple to start an LLC in 3 easy steps. Just answer a few basic questions, and we'll take care of the details.
Think if I burst them
and find
with
it. Sonya
Ash,
apologizes,
get one of them,
ducks
then
down,
ran
and that's
away.
when Grayson ends up shooting her 3 times. But then afterward, the
Tank
other deputy
engine.
trying to give Sonya first aid, but
Oh, I have
Grayson
that
then
tiny
also
thing.
reportedly tells the guy not to bother, that Sonya's injuries were just too severe. Also, I'll say, worth noting here, is that it actually wasn't Grayson's body cam that caught this whole interaction. It was the other deputies. Right, and that because Grayson's wasn't turned on. Also, as far as Sonya here, I feel like it's important to mention that she had been reportedly struggling with some mental health issues in the weeks leading up to her death. And in fact, the day before that she was killed, Sonya's mother called police saying that her daughter was having a mental breakdown and asked police not to hurt her when they responded. But then with this, after Sonya was killed, there was an investigation into her death by the Illinois State Police and the local state's attorney office. That investigation then leading to Grayson's indictment, which then led to him being fired, and then just a whole bunch of backlash for the sheriff's office for him being even hired in the first place. Because it turns out, Grayson had a spotty history at best with 2 DUI convictions, one of which led to his discharge from the Army for serious misconduct, as well as a documented history of impulsive decision-making and filing inaccurate reports as a law enforcement officer. And this whole situation had just reignited protests across the country about the way that law enforcement treats black communities, as well as those having mental health crises. You even had Joe Biden, who was president at the time, saying that Sonya should still be alive. But then with this, you had Grayson's defense successfully getting his trial moved out of Springfield to Peoria, about 70 miles away. That trial, it ended up lasting about a week, with the defense making the case that the shooting was actually justified. When he took the stand in his own defense, you had Grayson reportedly arguing that he was afraid for his safety when Sonya grabbed the pot of water, saying, "In this situation, unfortunately, I matched the threat level." And one of his attorneys adding that what happened to Sonya was, quote, tragic, but it was not a crime. So that is, you had the prosecution arguing that Grayson needlessly escalated the situation by failing to follow any of his training and acting unreasonably. Or with the top prosecutor saying, "We are here because of the actions of the defendant, and Sonya Massey is dead because of the defendant. Send anyone else, anyone, and Sonya Massey is alive." These were not the actions of a scared young police officer doing a dangerous job. These are the actions of a bully. And as far as the charges, Grayson was charged with first-degree murder, but the jury was also given the option of considering a lesser charge of second-degree murder instead, which can apply when a defendant faces a serious provocation or believes that their action is justified even if that belief is unreasonable. And after nearly 12 hours of deliberation, that is what the jury convicted Grayson on. So instead of the 45 years to life in prison that comes with first degree, Grayson is facing up to 20 years. Well, technically, probation is an option under a second-degree murder conviction. You have experts saying it's unlikely in this case. But also, I will say, not off the table. And so as a result, you had an uproar among Sonya's family and her supporters, with her father even calling this a miscarriage of justice. Adding, "Sean Grayson should be able to get out of jail when my daughter can get out of that burial vault and walk out of Oak Hill Cemetery." And Sonya's mom saying, "Anybody who watched the video and thinks that this was partly Sonya's fault is inhumane. For them to not give him life, and Sonya got life and death, I can't wait until he goes to hell." And you also had Sonya's cousin saying, "I'm fueled by rage right now." You get an officer that says he's going to shoot you in the face, and then he shoots you in the face, and you only get second degree? The justice system did exactly what it's designed to do today. It's not meant for us. And then, as far as the prosecution, they said that the verdict wasn't ideal, but it is a measure of justice. And adding, "Accountability has begun, and we now hope the court will impose a meaningful sentence that reflects the severity of these crimes and the life that was lost." But I will say, it's going to be a while till we know, because the sentencing hearing is actually not scheduled till January. And of course, while we wait to see that, I'd love to know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions here, as well as what you think we're going to see with the sentencing. But then, finally today, I almost feel like I have a guest host because he did such a good job here. This morning, I spoke with Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, for the In Good Faith podcast, which right now, it's up. You can get the full hour-long thing, links in the description. It's a really fantastic episode. We go super tech, Apple, Tim Cook, AI, and jobs. We get personal, get YouTube-y. But what I'm going to include here and today's show on is him walking me through this whole controversy around this new $20,000 in-home robot servant situation.
This is the pitch versus the reality. Okay. So the pitch is there's a 5'6" humanoid robot that lives in your house. And when you leave in the morning, it unplugs itself and gets off the dock and walks around and does your chores. It does the laundry, it does the dishes, it vacuums, it puts stuff away, it finds the remote between the cushions, it puts your keys back where they belong. Like it does everything. It's a nice little helper, and no matter how slow it does it, it's in the background. You're at work. It's doing all of this for you. Immense value, right? The reality is that requires an incredibly complex neural net and a model of your house and knowing all these household objects, and that doesn't exist yet. So there is also the ability for a teleoperator to come in and work through the robot to do these tasks for you, which represents obviously a totally different privacy situation, a totally different comfort level for a lot of people. And oh, by the way, you can give us your money today and pre-order it, and we'll ship the version with the teleoperator now, in hopes that maybe someday we'll get to the version that's super advanced that can do it all on its own. So if you're a tech bro, if you're really in the thick of this, if you're on Twitter thinking this is amazing, then you're actually willing to let that teleoperator do the task and hopefully contribute kind of as a beta tester. But if you're a little bit more unplugged, a little bit more of a normal person, you might say, this is an almost unfathomable product that should never be in your house. And what if it falls? And what if it lands on my dog? And what if it creeps out? What if it strangles me? Like, what? There's all kinds of questions people have that you just immediately think like a normal person. You're like, this sounds insane.
That is where I'm going to end this video, though. Again, much more to watch, just a click away. A full hour of the newest episode of In Good Faith, this one with MKBHD. You can click or tap right here, or I got links in the description or top comment. And/or you can watch the newest Philip DeFranco show that you haven't seen yet right here. But no matter what you do, let me just say thank you for watching. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here next time.
Fort Wayne Kia's tent sale is officially out of control. The deals are so massive, we're gonna need a bigger tent. The sale's so intense. It's intense.
Get a Sportage Hybrid with 0.9% APR for 48 months with 0 down. A Sorrento with 0% APR. Or a Kia Niro where you can save up to $6,500.
Visit Fort Wayne Kia on Illinois Road.
That's some,
or
like,
always online at fortwaynekia.com.
Zoomer lingo. Just loot. Try to show some fucking respect. The fucking third wave of Nick Fuentes is fucking wild.
We've got to talk about this MAGA right-wing civil war, because it's actually been going on for a bit, but it really heated up with this one interview. Because we had former Fox host and now podcaster Tucker Carlson bringing on the leader of the white nationalist Groyper movement, Nick Fuentes. Now, you know, with that, Carlson himself has been called a white nationalist by critics for a long list of past comments he's made, especially his promotion of the so-called rape replacement conspiracy theory, which suggests that there's a scheme to gradually replace white people with non-white immigrants. You know, even for Carlson, for many, Fuentes was seen as a uniquely far-right guest, especially when it came to anti-Semitism. And while you have people sharing moments from Carlson like this,
what I do think is bad, just objectively bad and destructive, is the all Jews are guilty, or all anybody is guilty of anything, because that's just like not true.
You also had people sharing clip after clip of this nearly 2.5-hour interview where Carlson seems friendly and sympathetic.
You know, I agree with you on some of the things you're pivoting against for sure.
I'm an American nationalist.
Me too. Worrying about who lives in your country is far right?
Apparently. There's a lot of these neocon Jewish types behind the Iraq War. There's the foreign aid complex, which is really unique.
Wild
it was the Zionist Jews, like Dave Rubin,
insane.
like Ben Shapiro, like Dennis Prager.
Fox is not a Jewish business, though.
Well, Rupert Murdoch is an ally of Netanyahu.
I'm not that interested in the Jews, but I'm very interested in the foreign policy question.
We do, on some level, need to be pro-white. Not to the exclusion of everybody else, but recognizing that white people have a special heritage here. You say identity politics like it's a bad thing. I think identity is a reality.
Identity is a reality.
Right, and so the full interview, it gets millions and millions of views. The clips, they go viral, pick up tens of millions of views across multiple platforms, and of course you then have people reacting. And among those you had Ted Cruz, who also had a very hostile interview with Carlson not too long ago, and he said,
if you sit there with someone who says Adolf Hitler was very, very cool, and that their mission is to combat and defeat global Jewry, and you say nothing, then you are a coward, and you are complicit in that evil.
Right, and that as you had Republican and former Senate leader Mitch McConnell saying, last I checked, conservatives should feel no obligation to carry water for anti-Semites and apologists for America-hating autocrats. But maybe I just don't know what time it is. But then also, someone with a lot of sway in the conservative movement came to Carlson's defense, Kevin Roberts. Right, he's the president of the Heritage Foundation, one of the most prestigious right-wing think tanks in the country and the creator of Project 2025.
Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. The Heritage Foundation didn't become the intellectual backbone of the conservative movement by canceling our own people or policing the consciences of Christians. And we won't start doing that now. We will always defend truth. We will always defend America, and we will always defend our friends against the slander of bad actors who serve someone else's agenda. That includes Tucker Carlson, who remains, and as I have said before, always will be a close friend of the Heritage Foundation.
With him then also adding that he disagrees with and even abhors things that Nick Fuentes has said, but that canceling him is not the answer. But then with that, you had others strongly disagreeing with, for example, Matt Brooks, the head of the Republican Jewish Coalition, telling Jewish Insider that he was appalled, offended, and disgusted that Roberts and Heritage would stand with Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes as somehow being acceptable spokespeople within the conservative movement. And now you also have Ben Shapiro jumping into the mix, throwing punches at both Roberts and Carlson.
It is not cancellation to draw moral lines between viewpoints. It is not cancellation to refuse to signal boost Hitler's supporters like Nick Fuentes. It is not cancellation to criticize Tucker Carlson for rhetorically fluffing Nick Fuentes and other anti-American crackpots.
In fact, Shapiro dedicated his entire show today just to the Carlson-Fuentes controversy, and he didn't mince his words.
They are white supremacists, they hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution.
I might just save all my rerolls for
With Shapiro then warning
Twin
that
Mask.
now being normalized within the mainstream Republican Party, and then adding,
The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend.
Now, with all this, for context, Shapiro's involvement here, it is likely something that he would already do, but also it is personal. Right? He's fought with Tucker and Fuentes before, but they also brought his name up a lot during the interview. Right? With Fuentes saying that he was actually a fan of Shapiro by the time that he went to college in 2016, having befriended many writers from the Daily Wire and getting cultivated as an up-and-coming right-wing debater. But then, according to his account, they first butt heads over Israel.
I tweeted to Ben Shapiro. I said, you know, I've never seen anything on the Daily Wire that's actually critical of Israel. He quote tweets me and says, to accuse a Jew of dual loyalty is the surest sign of anti-Semitism. So then I put out another tweet similar. I said something like, if you're China first, you should live in China. If you're Mexico first, you should live in Mexico.
That
if you're Israel
killed
first,
me?
maybe you should go live in Israel.
Holy
And again, he
fuck.
quote tweets me and says, you're an anti-Semite.
So you're an 18-year-old college freshman, you're clearly talented and you're engaged, you're really interested, and you ask not crazy questions, like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And rather than explain it, they just call you a racist, call you an anti-Semite.
And so he claims that after a few months of what he said was just asking questions about Israel, he was finally excised from the movement. And with that, he claimed that the Daily Wire was pivotal in blacklisting him. This even though, in his words,
And not to be that guy and say that thing, but like, my best friend is a Jewish person.
Right, but on his show today, you had Shapiro going on the offensive, playing a series of clips meant to prove that Fuentes' beliefs had extended far beyond just innocently questioning U.S. support for Israel. With Shapiro playing clips where it appears that Fuentes is saying that women actually want to be raped, instructing his followers to kill, rape, and die in his name, oppose civil rights for women, arguing that Jim Crow wasn't a big deal and was actually better for black people, stating that racism is justified, questioning the history of the Holocaust, and calling Hitler really fucking cool.
Hitler was a pedophile
How many
and kind of a
melees?
pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool.
Though also with that, you had people defending Fuentes kind of landing in three camps or in a mishmash of them. Right? Some seeing those clips and just saying based. Others have said some of these are not recent takes, and others saying that they're out of context. But then with all this, you had Shapiro turning to Carlson, with him playing a series of clips where Tucker apparently defends Vladimir Putin, defends the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro, gives a softball interview to the Iranian president, downplays Hamas, and ties Jeffrey Epstein to the Israeli government. And with all this, you had Shapiro pointing out that Carlson also recently interviewed Candace Owens, who herself hosted Nick Fuentes before that, and arguing that this is a pattern.
You bring your dirty, ugly ideologies to Tucker Carlson's rhetorical car wash. He mixes it with some of the vestigial respect Americans have for him from his Fox News days, and voila, hideous ideas suddenly become mainstream. But there's no question that Tucker has become the most virulent super spreader of vile ideas in America.
Should we use an HMO or a POS or
PPO?
maybe add an FSA?
Or HRA.
Or we
If we
can
go
add an
PhD,
HSA.
Go
You
ahead.
go. I think we should try PHP.
When it comes to health coverage, there's only 3 letters you need to know. PHP.
This Thanksgiving, we'll make the meal, you make the memories. Bring home a Bob Evans farmhouse feast with slow roasted turkey. Order now and don't miss a moment. Thanksgiving is better together from Bob Evans.
You know, also in this situation, Shapiro, he wasn't the only high-profile commentator targeted by Carlson and Fuentes. Right? Because they also talked about Mark Levin and claimed that he was actually the one who first radicalized Fuentes in 2016.
He goes live and he says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Does anybody think that's a good idea? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound so good.
Right now, while speaking before the Republican Jewish Coalition, you had Levin shooting back at them.
For 6 months, I've been fighting these bastards, whether it's Tucker Carlson or whether it's Nick Fuentes, and I've been looking over my shoulder looking for help. And you know what I found? Nothing. What do you mean we don't cancel people? We canceled David Duke. Donald Trump canceled David Duke. We canceled Pat Buchanan. We canceled the John Birch Society. We canceled Joseph Sobran. We canceled pornography on TV. We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers,
Fucking
Stalin
baited by my
admirers,
clone. That's
Jew
wild.
haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them.
And then, there were also others who got caught in all this. Not just Ted Cruz, but George Bush, Mike Huckabee, John Bolton, and others getting lumped together by Fuentes and Carlson as so-called Christian Zionists. And with that, you had Tucker in particular accusing them of heresy and saying that they've been infected by the brain virus that is neoconservatism. For now, we're going to have to wait to see what happens. Yes, in the long term, but also even just this week. For the Carlson-Fuentes interview kicked things off. You now have Shapiro, but there's going to be a lot more back and forth happening. Though again, it didn't all stem from this podcast. These fissures, they've been widening for months now, if not years. Though arguably, I think the biggest mover in the last year or so has been what Israel did in Gaza. Lots of hearts, minds, opinions, viewpoints have changed. But again, that's just one aspect of a multi-front issue. And so with all this, as we wait to see how this MAGA civil war plays out, I'd love to know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions here. And then there's more we're going to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me say, between gas, groceries, gifts, and the unexpected, holidays are basically a financial endurance test. And that's where today's sponsor, Upside, comes in clutch all season. Upside's the free app giving you extra cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, and eating out, because holiday survival shouldn't require a second job. Open the app, claim an offer, pay like normal, follow the steps, and boom, money back. And it's real money, not like points, credits, or mystery tokens that you'll never use. And Upside works with over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants, so you're saving whether you're on a road trip or just avoiding cooking. Users also earn up to 3 times more cash back than other programs, and together, they've already gotten back over $1 billion. Right, last night I was at 7-Eleven filling up and I saw the Upside offer for 10% off per gallon. I saved a few dollars right there. And so this app, it gives your wallet a reason to smile this season. Y'all, Upside has given back $1 billion to its users, and to find out how much you could earn, just download the free Upside app and use promo code DeFranco to get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas using promo code DeFranco. The next up in the news, let's talk about MAGA World losing their minds this weekend over this picture. Because you've got a bunch of teachers from Tucson wearing bloody t-shirts with the words "problem solved" for Halloween. And to many MAGA, this was a clear reference to Charlie Kirk. And it really seemed to kick off when you had Andrew Colvett, a spokesperson for Turning Point USA, writing, "Concerned parents just sent us this image of what's believed to be teachers mocking Charlie's murder. They deserve to be famous and fired." With then other conservative leaders like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis then piling on and tweeting, "It's been really disturbing to see teachers across the country glorifying a murder just because they disagreed with the victim." Except, here's the thing, there was a major problem, and that actually ends up being a pun, with this narrative. Because turns out it wasn't a reference to Kirk at all. With Vail School District Superintendent John Carruth quickly putting out a statement denying that and saying, "We want to clarify that these shirts were part of a math-themed Halloween costume meant to represent
the ANT or ENT? Am I actually retarded?
Shirts were never intended to target any person, event, or political issue." With them then going on to say that other descriptions of this were false claims and unequivocally untrue. Though you also saw Carruth trying to be a bit diplomatic and saying that he understood how the image could come off badly and that we are, quote, truly sorry for the hurt or upset it has caused. But that also is, there was other evidence that this wasn't a reference to Kirk, such as the fact that the teachers wore the exact same thing last year, as many on social media pointed out. But of course, since this all went viral, the district and the individual teachers, they've apparently been getting harassed, leading to demands that Colvett and others apologize for getting it so wrong. And after seeing the evidence contradicting the claims that this was a Kirk reference, Colvett appeared to double down and wrote, "We've seen enough evil since Charlie's murder that I'd actually be relieved if this isn't another example. That being said, it's a very weird costume for teachers in general, but after what happened to Charlie, I'm absolutely floored they wore it again. I do not believe for a second that all of them are innocent. Some probably are, but I believe others knew exactly what they were doing." However, it looked like other TPUSA members were more apologetic. With, for example, Blake Neff, a producer for the Charlie Kirk Show, writing that he realizes his proximity to the assassination makes it far more likely to see references to it, even if there wasn't one. But also, considering the evidence that the shirts were worn last year, he didn't feel like it was right to keep his criticism on it. That said, though, some MAGA people, they're outraged and they've kind of moved the goalposts post slightly, and they've written things like, the school district claims these teachers wore the same exact shirts last year. I'm skeptical, but okay, let's pretend that's true. How is it okay for teachers to wear these shirts just 3 months after the public assassination attempt of Donald Trump? It's not. It's abhorrent. And while you've had some agreeing with that sentiment, you've also had others saying that just sounds like someone trying to save face. But hey, yeah, this is a news show, but also it's a conversation, so let me know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions here. Then, next up in the news, I've got a fun little thing you get to stress about if you want. If you were like, man, there's not enough stress in my life. Because a new study has now linked regular melatonin use with the increased risk of heart failure. So one, we should talk about it because you're going to see this in the news, but also two, because if you're one of the millions of people who use melatonin all the time, experts say that you shouldn't panic, at least yet, right? Because specifically, the study analyzed 5 years of data from over 130,000 adults with an average age of 55 who have been diagnosed with insomnia. Within that subset, the researchers found around 65,000 people who had been prescribed melatonin and reported taking it for at least a year. Because while you or I, we might be able to walk into a drugstore and buy as much as we want over the counter, outside of the United States, there are other countries that require a prescription, like for example, the UK. And while notably, patient locations weren't available to the researchers, they did account for a number of other factors that could influence heart failure risk, like various health conditions. To conduct this study, the researchers compared the health records of the 65,000 people who had been prescribed melatonin with other patients who had insomnia but no record of taking the supplement. What they found is that people with a reported long-term melatonin use had about a 90% higher chance of heart failure over 5 years compared with non-users.
Oh my god, all those are so good.
Number of people who had heart failure is still relatively low. We're talking like 4.6% for recorded melatonin users and 2.7% for non-users. But then also beyond that, researchers found that people who took melatonin were nearly 3.5 times as likely to be hospitalized for heart failure and nearly twice as likely to die from any cause than those in non-melatonin groups. So,
if your side hustle is starting to make real money, it's time to make it official with an LLC.
Fucking RNG did this game, goddamn.
Oh, you might look at that and get freaked out, especially because melatonin use has become so prevalent in recent years, with many viewing it as a safe, more natural sleep aid. I mean, a 2022 survey found that more than 1 in 4 adults reported taking the supplement to help them to sleep. But also, I'll say, before you panic, there are a few important things that we need to break down. First of all, I'll say that the study hasn't gone through the rigorous peer review process, so it's still considered to be preliminary. And then beyond that, the study also had some very significant limitations that could pretty dramatically impact its finding. Right, the biggest issue by far is that the group of people listed as melatonin users were categorized that way only because they were prescribed the medication and had it noted in their health records. So the data, it doesn't account for people who could be taking it over the counter without a prescription. So it's very likely that many of the insomniacs who were identified as non-users actually did take melatonin for an extended period, but it just wasn't in their records because maybe they live in America or one of the many other countries where you can get it over the counter. Right, and all of that, as experts noted, that the health records analyzed here lacked important details about the severity of the insomnia among patients and whether those prescribed melatonin reported changes with their sleep pattern. Because quality sleep is incredibly important for heart health. Research shows that people who get poor sleep, they tend to have higher heart rates and blood pressure and experience more cardiovascular events. So if the patients taking prescription melatonin still were not getting good sleep, it could skew the results. And with that, you had an associate professor of cardiovascular medicine at Yale School of Medicine explaining if they had such bad insomnia that they needed prescription dose melatonin, were they actually getting the benefit of the melatonin for sleep? And if the answer is no, then you cannot have a correlation that melatonin causes heart failure. With them then adding that it's more likely that insomnia could be contributing to declining heart health and heart failure. You know, even the research
I actually think I'm just gonna save to get 2 fucking
limitations, with the lead author saying this doesn't prove that melatonin
legendary items.
Heart failure. It simply shows that people
like Gunblade and Nashers would go so hard right now.
Are more likely to experience these outcomes. Still, he argued that the fact that they found a link at all, it's still notable and it needs to be studied further. Adding, melatonin is generally viewed as a very safe supplement, as something people and even physicians don't usually worry much about. So we honestly
with most of these things, if you don't abuse them, you're fucking fine.
Higher rates of heart failure, hospitalizations, and death. Right? And that's something that many experts agree on, arguing that these findings, they raise questions about whether melatonin is more harmful than we think, and it highlights the need to study the medicine further. But for now, you've got some medical professionals saying that there's no need for people and healthcare providers to change things up, especially because some of the past research actually suggests that melatonin might have health benefits for people with heart failure. Some noting that it's an antioxidant and could help protect against coronary artery disease, which could cause heart failure. That said, experts still advise that melatonin should be used carefully and under supervision, especially for people who have cardiovascular risk factors. And then we'll get back to the news in just a minute, but first let me say, get in on this sale. Right now, over at BeautifulBastard.com, I decided to just do the Black Friday sale now. So right now, if you go to BeautifulBastard.com, pretty much everything's 60% off. So you can grab yourself maybe some graphic gear, flannels, a polo, the Go Anywhere pen, candles, there's a bunch. Also, just small warning, there is limited stock of this first push for November, so definitely grab what you want while you can. But then next up today, we've got to talk about how Peace President Donald Trump has now threatened to go guns a-blazing into Nigeria. And he said the reason for this is that thousands of Christians are being killed by radical Islamists and the government's doing nothing to stop it. Though that is, you have experts saying that the truth isn't that simple. Right, so Nigeria is an extremely diverse, multi-ethnic country, but in terms of religion, its population of more than 230 million people, it's split almost equally between Christians and Muslims, with Christians mostly in the south and Muslims mostly in the north. And as far as the killing, the worst of it has been concentrated in the northeast, largely thanks to the extremist group Boko Haram and its years-long campaign to build an Islamic state. But also here, while Christians are targeted, most victims of Boko Haram and other armed groups are Muslim, right, since that's the dominant population in the part of the country where most of the attacks are happening. Now that said, in other parts of the country, there have also been clashes between mostly Christian farming communities and largely Muslim herders. And so religion, it's definitely a factor, but the conflict is also driven by land and resources. And overall, the data seems to back that up, with the US-based Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Program finding that nearly 12,000 attacks against civilians resulted in over 20,000 deaths in Nigeria from 2020 until now, with 385 attacks resulting in 317 deaths being targeted events against Christians where Christian identity of the victim was a reported factor, and then also 196 attacks resulting in 417 deaths were against Muslims. And so with that, you've got a researcher at the Institute for Security Studies explaining that the crisis is far more complex than a simple religious framing suggests. The geography of violence largely determines who becomes the victim. But also, despite that, there are those who have latched on to the less complex narrative, including before Trump. Right? And that includes Senator Ted Cruz, who a few weeks ago you had him introducing legislation to designate Nigeria as a violator of religious freedom, alleging that, quote, officials are ignoring and even facilitating the mass murder of Christians by Islamist jihadists. Right? And then you fast forward to this week and you had Trump writing on social media, Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria, and claiming radical Islamists are responsible for the mass slaughter of thousands of Christians, and announcing that he would be designating Nigeria a country of particular concern, and then adding, the United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. We stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world. And then with that, you got him not only threatening to end all aid and assistance to Nigeria, but he also warned the U.S. may very well go into that now disgraced country guns a-blazing to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities, and adding, I am hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. But then Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth responding on X saying, yes,
more
sir,
crusades
against Nigeria. Through all of this, as you had the Nigerian president denying them, writing on X, the characterization of Nigeria as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national reality, nor does it take into consideration the consistent and sincere efforts of the government to safeguard freedom of religion and beliefs for all Nigerians. But also with that, I will add, while Trump's claims are misleading at best, many experts say that he is at least right that the government could be doing more. Right, and with that, Trump mentioned making Nigeria a country of particular concern, and that is a real designation established under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 to describe countries that systemically violate religious freedoms. And you actually had the independent U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom recommending this year that Nigeria be put back on that list after the Biden administration removed it. Though also, notably there, the commission emphasized violence against both Christians and Muslims, writing, religious freedom conditions in Nigeria are poor as the government tolerates or is slow to respond to attacks by non-state actors who kill, kidnap, or threaten Christians and Muslims.
Oh my God, do I go like a
regions. And so we're gonna have to wait to see how this plays out. But also something notable about all this is that while Trump is pushing this misleading narrative about Nigeria, he's remained silent as an
I get like a thorn mail.
ally has been committing what is likely some
I
of
have
the most horrific
Omnivan.
violence of the 21st century. Right in there, I'm
So
talking about what's happening in Sudan, right? Because the blood, it's visible from
Gamba,
space. That's the result
some
of likely
AD.
tens of thousands of people being killed in the past week in the Sudanese city of El Fasher. Because as we've talked about, the paramilitary force known as the RSF, they took control of the city on October 26th after an 18-month siege. And while many have tried to escape, relatively few have succeeded, with a Doctors Without Borders coordinator in the town where most of those who have made it out have been arriving, explaining. Our question is very simple. Where are they? Where are the rest? And adding, our fear is that these people have been detained for extortion or got killed. And to that point, those who have escaped, they've reportedly been showing up with bullet wounds and signs of torture, with one survivor saying about her journey out of the city. There were bodies of men and women everywhere. Some people were run over by vehicles. While we were on the road, they took girls from our group, choosing them and dragging them away. You've also had the World Health Organization verifying an attack on El Fasher's last functioning hospital, saying that more than 450 people have been killed. And ultimately, we seem to be watching history repeat itself in a way that is unfortunately unsurprising. Because the RSF, it grew out of the government-backed militias accused of genocide in Darfur in the early 2000s, where when an estimated 300,000 civilians belonging mostly to non-Arab ethnic groups were killed, women were systematically raped and millions of people displaced. And now you've got Nathaniel Raymond, the head of Yale's Humanitarian Research Lab, saying that the RSF is now finishing the liquidation of Darfur and adding, this is the final battle of the Darfur genocide. Though also in terms of the intensity of the violence, you had him evoking the 1994 Rwandan genocide where more than 800,000 civilians were killed in just over 100 days. And you had him saying that high-res satellite images that his team had seen, it showed activity that suggests mass killing on a level that can only be compared to Rwanda, and adding, we have never seen a velocity of violence at this scale. We're in the tens of thousands in terms of all the body-consistent objects on the ground. They are moving like a wood chipper, and they are killing everything that moves. And then with all that, we can't ignore the role that foreign powers, either through direct support or indifference, have played in making this violence possible. And there, as far as the RSF, it's
give me that
the United Arab Emirates, which has been supplying money and arms to the group. And with that, you had Cameron Hudson, a former chief of staff to successive U.S. presidential special envoys for Sudan, saying the war would be over if not for the UAE. The only thing that is keeping them in this war is the overwhelming amount of military support that they're receiving from the UAE. And notably, with that, the UAE, it gets a lot of support from the United States of America, and we've seen very little pushback on that from members of Congress. Right? Yes, you've had a bipartisan group of senators issuing a statement condemning the violence and calling for the RSF to be designated a foreign terrorist organization, and even noting foreign backers of the RSF and SAF, including the United Arab Emirates, Russia, Iran, China, and governments in the immediate region, have fueled and profited from the conflict and legitimized the monsters destroying Sudan. But for all of that, their statement doesn't call for any specific action against those countries. Now, you've also had Senator Chris Van Hollen and some others pushing for legislation prohibiting arms sales to the UAE until it stops arming the RSF, but that doesn't seem to actually have a chance. Right? Even if it did, which again, we are not saying it even has a chance. If it did, you'd still understandably have people asking, what could have been prevented by taking action sooner? None of this can be undone. But again, that's where we are right now, and we're gonna have to keep eyes on this. But that, my friends, you beautiful bastards, is where today's show is going to end. But remember, you've got more just a click away. You've got my brand new podcast, In Good Faith, this week with MKBHD. Also, I'm going to have another IGF episode out for you tomorrow. This time, for the first time ever, with a guest who is actively facing a federal indictment. And/or you can watch the newest episode of Crashing Out with myself and Alex Perlman. And the newest episode this week is going to be out Thursday. What a week it's going to be. Thank you for watching. I love you, faces, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
I feel like the YouTube algorithm's been so ass.
What would it actually take to sink a 100,000-ton floating supercarrier? A single missile, 10? Or are we all underestimating just how resilient and survivable these ships really are? Today, we're going to examine this question with our best estimate, based on declassified Soviet documents, open source intelligence data, past examples of ship strikes, and expert statements from naval officers. To start off, we'll assume that the PLA rocket force fires several of their DF series carrier killer missiles from land mobile launchers. The long-range DF-26 is fired from the northwestern province of Shanghai, and the medium-range DF-21 is fired from the near-eastern province off the coast in Zhejiang. Both of the missiles converge on the carrier strike group. We assume, though, that the supercarrier is found and its location is fixed. What happens next is the DF-21 launch is detected by U.S. military satellites overhead that are monitoring heat signatures of launches. U.S. Space Command sends advance warning to the carrier. Its position is 1,000 kilometers away just south of Taiwan, within the missile's max range of 1,700 kilometers. The missile's traveling at a speed of Mach 10, so it's going to take roughly 5 minutes to reach them. This episode's sponsored by Ground News, and I'll use this platform to analyze the story that actually gave me the idea for this episode about how U.S. military deploys aircraft carrier to South America amid soaring tensions with Venezuela. Ground News gives me unbiased, objective look at the fast facts right at the top of the story. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered the USS Gerald R. Ford strike group to reroute from Europe to the Caribbean, a 5,000-mile journey. The Senate rejected a war powers resolution allowing the military buildup to continue. Armed Forces Press stated that the president says land targets are next inside Venezuela. Then I can dig even deeper with Ground News and find out who these publications are actually funded by, because I like my news news like I like my women, strong and independent that don't need nobody. I can even instantly pull up the top podcasts on the subject because sometimes that's where the best facts are hiding. And because I believe in Ground News so much, they're offering you guys 40% off the same Vantage plan that me and my team use here. Just click the link in the description or go to ground.news/Cappy or scan the QR code. It brings the price down to just $5 a month. If you want a better understanding of the world, give Ground News a shot. I can't tell you where each of our carriers are with any degree of precision, but given a few moments of research at base ops, I can give you the coordinates of every Air Force runway, ramp, and hangar worldwide. The first problem for Chinese forces before the missile gets to the carrier is that they have to find its exact location in the first place, because it's not good enough to know the general vicinity. To hit a moving ship with a missile, they need to know the exact location, speed, and direction with almost real-time precision updates. The way the Soviet Union attempted to solve this problem was with a war plan to concentrate an entire air division to find and attack the American carrier. The Soviet tactic was to fly reconnaissance planes extremely low at about 200 meters off the water for 300 kilometers to penetrate the American radar screen. It would essentially be a kamikaze one-way run for the motherland because their job would be to just get visual eyes-on confirmation of the carrier's location and radio those details back before being shot down. The Soviet Navy's declassified documents reveal that they hoped this would overwhelm the carrier's defenses, with then sending in hundreds of Soviet backfires and Badger fighters armed with over 80 anti-ship missiles just to sink the single carrier.
It's time to ask more of our browser. Hey Copilot, adjust all these recipes for 7 guests and combine them into one cooking schedule. Also, I'm out of milk.
Here's a cooking schedule scaled for 7 guests and also milk-free.
Miss H6. You sank my battleship. Battleship from Milton Bradley.
The modern Chinese Navy will have more surveillance capabilities at their disposal. Space satellites with imagery study wake patterns of carriers and can locate them within a 200-kilometer grid square general area. EW radar aircraft, underwater sensors, a network of submarines and drones can get a closer fix. Over-the-horizon land radars can also get close, but they cannot pinpoint a moving carrier's exact location. In response, the US Navy Ford aircraft carrier, their first line of defense, is to go into what's called emissions control mode to limit any active transmissions like radio and radar. They only use one-way bursts of communications to reduce SIGINT clues of their location. Elaborate decoy emissions and deception tactics are deployed to fake their location. The Navy places their oil tankers, for instance, with an enhanced radar signature at the center of their formation to deceive and fool the PLA into thinking that it's a carrier. The second layer of defense for the carrier is the escort screen from a squadron of Arleigh Burke destroyers and dozens of fighter jets that now scramble to intercept the missile, and an attack submarine also has their back. A Ford-class carrier is never sailing alone, it's always flanked by its homies. We have some evidence actually of how this works in practice. The first time in naval warfare history that a US ship intercepted an incoming anti-ship ballistic missile was just recently in the Red Sea against the Houthis in 2023. The Navy effectively shot down 7 incoming anti-ship missiles, but those were moving at much slower speeds of between Mach 3 and 4, and that's roughly half the speed of the estimates of the Chinese DF-21. At this point, the DF-21 missile is incoming and it's now within about 30 kilometers range of the carrier. It deploys its maneuverable re-entry vehicle, so it's able to now quickly adjust its flight path and make a trajectory for the carrier. The USS Ford takes evasive maneuvers itself. They accelerate to its top speed of between 35 and 40 knots, and they make a hard turn to starboard. The carrier will have traveled 10 kilometers since the launch of its missile. We know China has trained on this scenario for years by building mock-ups of US Navy aircraft carriers in the desert for target practice. The replica 2-scale models are mounted on a moving rail system designed to simulate and mimic how carriers sail. The DF-21 missile activates its terminal seeker, which attempts to lock onto radar, and it uses its optical view to home in on the moving ship. The missile knows where the missile is, unless it doesn't, because there's a lot of variables that can go wrong at this point with the missile and its ability to pick the target back up accurately after coming back from the atmosphere, because there's a window of 10 to 20 minutes where it cannot receive new targeting data, so there's problems for the missile as well. The DF-21 has a circular error probable, according to US Navy estimates, of hitting anywhere between 20 to 100 meters from where its point of aim is. The Ford is about 337 meters long by 78 meters wide, which makes it a narrow, close call. It's a roll of the dice, whether it hits or not. But since we're the dungeon masters here, we will assume, for the sake of our hypothetical, that it's a D20 roll of the dice, a critical hit. We're assuming in this hypothetical that everything goes wrong for the carrier and everything goes right for the missile for the sake of argument. We're also assuming the open source information of these systems is accurate and that these weapons work and are reliable, when it's often not the case in real life. At this point, for the sake of the thought experiment, the missile is able to evade the Navy's electronic jamming, chaff clouds, and it gets through the SM-6 interceptors and Sea-Wiz defense systems, which in reality would defeat a percentage of incoming missiles. The missile strikes the side of the USS Ford hull with a 600 kilogram payload of explosives at a final speed of Mach 5. All that kinetic force is equal to 700 kilograms of TNT even before that warhead detonates. The first strike hits center mass on the side of the ship, and the Chinese DF-21 uses a unitary penetrating high explosive bomb. It has a semi-armor piercing warhead that's designed to detonate as deep as possible inside the middle of the carrier. It will punch a large hole through the flight deck. Overpressure will blast into the hangar, leaving a cloud of incendiary shrapnel and fragments. It'll rip through some doors and ventilation systems. Thick smoke from the hangar fire triggers foam and fire suppression systems. Damage control procedures begin and repairs start immediately. For the initial moment, part of the carrier's air wing is effectively out of action, but the forward hangars are split into 3 sections, and there are multiple elevators and launch sections on the ship. The single hit is likely not a mission kill entirely, although there are 100 casualties. The missile hit the high-strength HY-80 and HSLA-100 steels that the carrier is built from. This is 1.5 inches thick. The ship's designers...
I've made a lot of Pokemon Scalper content
that was getting recently, a little boring,
because it is truly just a catastrophe. It is a wasteland. The state of that hobby is in shambles. It is one of the most despicable hobbies on the planet right now because of scalpers and just degenerate losers that have infested it. I know it's been said a million times before, but it's super true. Pokemon is not for children anymore. It is reserved exclusively for the greasiest,
brawl at the
slimiest,
Walmart
most loveless losers
if you
in
want to
your
get into
local neighborhood,
Pokemon.
deluding themselves into thinking that flipping it on Facebook Marketplace for a $3 profit is a career. These pathetic vermin in this perpetual cycle of buying every new piece of Pokemon product gluttonously and just trying to flip it instantly, taking advantage of the hype train, hoping that some people will overpay for it. And in many cases, they are. And if you are a child looking to get your hands on any Pokemon cards, you better just start taking Taekwondo courses, because you're basically signing up to go into battle, going to a war zone. You're going to be having to fight grown-ass men here to get your hands on Pokemon product. Anyway, why I'm yapping about this for the millionth time is because today, a scalper video actually went extremely viral. Like, actually turbo popped off millions upon millions of views and multiple angles because so many people were outraged. And I think it is the epitome for the state of Pokemon cards right now.
Alright, so this is Zay, the manager. This is what they're selling to one person. This guy right here. One person. One person. Look at this. You're going to be on all the websites. One person. One person.
It's cute how he immediately tries to cover his face in shame while in a panic, and then desperately tries to cling to something to defend himself, but all he can utter out is this trash by saying, "You're a grown-ass man."
I did so
Meanwhile,
much
he
damage.
is also a
What the
grown-ass
fuck?
man. Unless, of course, he's like a baby that's been sent to Wumbo or something. But I'm pretty sure that is also a grown-ass man that's dumping his entire paycheck on this Pokemon product, and the manager of the Walmart is there as like his fucking muscle, like his security guard, because it seems like the manager probably knew this was going to be a bad look, because they literally wheel out multiple shelves of Pokemon product for this guy to buy. And he hasn't bought it yet, mind you. They're in the process of scanning each individual item, and the manager is refusing to let any other customers grab some of the items from his haul here, which makes me think, and many of the people in the comics think, that they're in on it together, that this is a side hustle for the manager, and that these might be friends that the manager is giving this honor to, this incredible gift of being able to buy the entire inventory, so that way maybe later down the line the two of them can split profits when they inevitably flip it. Now that's just a little bit of a game theory, but it's the only logical explanation for why the manager himself would be here defending this customer's right to purchase every single piece of Pokemon product Walmart has, even going as far as to wheel the shelves over to the checkout register for him. That is unhinged. That is craziness to me. And it's not like a crackpot tinfoil condom conspiracy theory either, by the way. This is actually something that's been well reported in the hobby, where there are some people on the staff at Walmarts and other places that stock this product that do actually tell their friends when it's coming in, so that way they can go buy it and they work together to split profits from it. That has happened before. And I feel like it's a pretty strong argument here that that might be what we're seeing unfold right now. Because how else can you explain this shit? It only gets worse as the video goes on, mind you.
Create spellbinding campaigns with full funnel advertising.
Billy Kid. Comes to Bel Air. Fish out of water, but still thriving. These boys are about to go off to college. I'm taking the biggest swing of my life here. My GPA is top of the class. Princeton should be lucky to have me. Looking long term, ownership, legacy. We're looking for more. What's your grit? I need a little bit more time to make something shake.
Time isn't on your side, nephew.
I worked so hard to get my life back on track.
Do an on hit we can find.
For me or your history?
I don't even know if this will come up.
You were supposed to sit beside me.
Wits End would especially be good this round.
There's consequences for disloyalty.
I'm the one who got snatched off the street, right? What happens when you want to walk away from this thing?
The thought of starting over terrifies me.
I'm gonna be right by your side.
I'm not trying to spend my high school years living in the shadow of Hillary and Carlton.
Your whole future can be right in front of you.
Sometimes letting go is braver than holding on out of fear.
The only plan that matters right now is love.
Holy fuck.
Don't be afraid to let your life get flipped, turned upside down. And embrace the change ahead.
One person. One person. They're selling this all to one person. This is the manager. This is the manager's egg. He didn't bring any of these up yet, but won't let me buy them. They're all rung up, but they're sitting there. I see her scanning them.
Sir, they're on the machine. Can you have this product?
No.
Just a blatant, bold-faced lie saying that they're already rung up. You can hear them scanning it. They are actively scanning these products. They are not rung up, but the manager is reserving them for this goober here in the hoodie that is now trying to, cover his face like fucking Bane here, so that way you can't make out who he is. I gotta tell you, sports fans, I have a hunch that if I went to that Walmart and I grabbed an entire fucking shelf and brought it to a checkout register, I probably would be met with a little bit of friction there. I probably would have to answer to the higher-ups, and they wouldn't necessarily condone that. I don't think they'd let me just buy the entire fucking shelf that I brought to the register. But he gets to. Why is that? That's quite curious, isn't it? That's a little odd. I've never seen that before.
You already paid.
He did? Is his card swiped yet? No.
Sir, you're not going to be able to
Dude,
get it.
all right. you're the like head manager of this Walmart.
There's
All
no higher than
Zay. All right, Zay from this manager of Walmart on Arroyo is letting one guy buy all these because he knows them. Because he knows them. Because he knows them. Because he knows them. I can record. You can. Yes, I can, Zay.
Ooh, that one touched a nerve there all at once. It was like a fucking Winter Soldier response. They're like, oh, wait, no, we don't know him. No, we're all strangers here. We don't know that guy. No, this manager's just super fucking awesome. No, this guy just lets anyone just grab the display shelves and bring it to the checkout register to buy all of the product. And then also, that forbids everyone else from even accessing the product, even before it's paid for. Oh, and every single line out of the protagonist loser in the hoodie's mouth is just fucking cinema. Every single sentence that he squeaks out from his lips is more pathetic than the last. So when he's trying to say he has no idea who this manager is, he has the gall to say, I'm from LA, ask about me. What in tarnation are you yapping about? What? Ask who about you? Burger King? Like what? How does you being from LA mean that you have no idea who the manager is? How does that mean that you guys can't be friends just because you're from LA? What is that thought process, man?
Bought all of this, plus another pack over there. Oh wait, where's it coming?
Bro, this is the shit I'm talking about. Nah, don't cover your face, bro. You're gonna buy everything, dog?
Do
You're
whatever
a fucking
you want,
dick.
bro.
You're a fucking dick.
Do something about it.
Deadass, yeah? We can step the fuck outside. Look at out here. No, cover your face too. Look at this. The kind of shitty people do this shit. And, bro, fuck off. Shitty ass fucking people.
This is one of the other angles I was talking about. Here you can see really the whole scope of the operation. I counted 3 full displays that they wheeled over for this guy and the girl with him as well. 3 whole displays he was able to buy up while being reserved, apparently, since the manager wasn't letting anyone touch any of that product anymore. Also, he's starting to puff out his chest a little bit. He even insinuates that he's ready to throw down for Pokemon cards, ready to get into a bit of a scuffle, saying, do something about it. This stupid asshole forgot that he wasn't on Xbox Live right now, so now his mouth is writing checks his ass can't cash. So he's ready to, like, fight a stranger here over this Pokemon product that he is greedily buying up. He's ready to, you know, alright, do something about it. It's fisticuffs time. And then the guy filming's like, alright, we can go outside, and then he immediately kind of like shies away, like, come on, fucking hurry up. Finish ringing me up, please. What an unhinged asshole. Now he's just ready to start fighting over it. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure I heard this benevolent saint mention that he gave a couple of people some of the merchandise there. Don't know if that's true or not, considering in the other video we saw that the manager wasn't letting anyone touch any of that product anymore because it's only purchasable by this guy for some really weird reason. So I don't know, I'd have to call into question the authenticity of that claim that he lets some people have a little bit, especially when you look at the displays. They are fucking filled to the brim. The cup runneth over on greed here. I don't think he's being truthful when he says he let someone else have some. I don't see a dent in it. And regardless, even if he parted ways with 1 or 2, look at the quantity he's buying. Nobody else is going to have any Pokemon product for themselves or their kids or whatever. I can only, with my fingers crossed, hope that any day now, people will finally wake the fuck up and stop paying scalper prices for Pokemon product. If that happened, if people would just finally stop paying over MSRP for this, these scalpers would be left with their dick in their hand, and they'd be furious. That is how you win. You stop paying over MSRP to these losers. But I don't see that happening because the hype train's too high, and most of the time, let's be honest, it's scalpers selling to other scalpers. So even in this extremely egregious example of scalping, I imagine there were probably 10, 20 other scalpers that were looking to do something very similar, just maybe not to this extreme degree. And probably without the blessings of the manager here, because it seems like the manager was really on this guy's side. But mostly this hobby has become truly just plagued by greedy assholes that don't view it as a hobby, more so like an investment and a get-rich-quick scheme through flipping this shit. It sucks, man. It sucks. And this has got to be the best showcase of just how low it sank. Anyway, wanted to make fun of this clown and wanted to talk more about Pokemon scalping. That's really about it. See ya.
Ready to lose the hat and regrow the hair?
With Chews by Hims, you can regain your hair and your confidence. Our chews are powered by clinically proven ingredients like minoxidil and finasteride, so you can grow thicker, fuller hair in 3 to 6 months. Your treatment is 100% personalized to your hair goals and comes at an affordable price that works for your budget, so you can step out with full confidence. Hats off to hair growth with treatment that works for you. Start today at hims.com.
I always know when the round's about to start.
I've recently been in my oversized, comfy shirt era here, and by oversized I mean I cranked it all the way up to a large for these purchases. That's why you've been seeing a wide array of different colors of shorts. Well, shorts as well. I get very quirky with my short selection, but that's why I've been seeing like this wide variety of shirt colors outside of just the standard plain white tee. And there's a couple big reasons for it. One, as I get older, it feels real good just being real breathable here and having all this room for playtime with my appendages, you know what I mean? Without it feeling all tight and stuffy. And two, underneath these pump covers, I have been diligently sculpting a body of steel from this canvas of marble that is my upper body and lower body. And so, like a prized luxury car, I'm keeping the cover on here. So that way when I take it off, it'll be a big reveal, you know what I mean? Maybe. I don't know. It's hard for me to like
the
get
shields are so
big.
insane.
I get stronger, but getting bigger, I get like meatball mode. I don't
What is-
like it's. You'll see. Over the last
There's like an
3 months,
anti-shield
I've gained 10 or
lethality
so
item.
pounds, and I'm getting closer to my strength goals. I'm getting there, but we still have quite a ways to go. But the only reason we've been yapping about this, by the way, is because since I've been getting so serious about this, I've been using YouTube.
Jesus, I would do so
I've been
much
using
fucking
YouTube
damage. It'd be so
as a
slow.
resource for a lot of like wide variety of
Interesting.
things, and as such, YouTube has felt the need to push like steroid-based content onto me now. Really wants me to start getting on a nice like trin regimen. So I'm getting fed all kinds of like lifters who are juiced to the gills, which whatever, as long as you're upfront and honest about the usage of it, I don't really give much of a fuck. You do what you want to do. But it is very crazy to me how normalized it's become in the fitness industry, where it's almost like a mandatory thing for a lot of people just breaking into that industry. It's pretty nuts. But anyway, today, instead of feeding me content that was like lifting and steroids, it was just showing me roid rage. And one of them came from Midwest Safety with this goober who is clearly on the tartar sauce, going ballistic after getting his 37th noise complaint.
On September 27, 2023, in Joliet, Illinois, officers were dispatched to a gym for the 36th consecutive noise complaint. This time, they'd had enough.
Damn. That's tragic.
Sounded like a fucking Offspring concert in there. That is some loud music blasting in there. And if you look at the time on the recording, it's pretty early in the morning. The early bird is not getting the worm. He's getting a fucking injection into the butt cheek there. Holy. So it is very loud music. But, you know, noise complaints oftentimes are just kind of a nuisance, like a headache. They're not like a super serious thing. This being his 36th consecutive one over a really small period of time is interesting because brother just turned down the music. Why keep doing this song and dance? It's a fucking gym. Most people going there are going to be having their AirPods or whatever in anyway. They're going to listen to their own music, not the house music. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've seen people in a public gym just raw dogging it with no headphones or no, you know, ear devices to listen to their own music. There's just no need to be playing it that loud.
Okay. What are you doing as president?
Wait, so 5 years. So the last one would have been 2020 during COVID. I don't want to pause too much because I could talk about everything. Dude, just thinking about COVID makes me realize COVID changed so much. We're getting so far from it that it doesn't even feel, it's like harder. It's like the before times. 2019 sounds like the before times, dude. It's like people young enough they can't even really remember it. It feels hazy. But it's like so different. It's never really gotten back in the same way.
Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough.
What an opener.
Whether it's this
What a
at
fucking opener.
the biggest pizza party ever,
or trying to eat an airplane, there's a method to the madness of getting into Guinness World Records.
Wait, what?
As many as 95% of submissions get...
What are we talking about? Am I in the wrong video?
We do fallacy.
What is this tone shift? The President of the United States saying we haven't gone far enough and we're throwing women to the ground. And by the way, if you bounce 10 basketballs, you could get into the Guinness Book of World Records.
We are now approaching the longest shutdown in American
Okay, big
history.
question.
Democrats' fault.
Under your presidency,
Wait, let him cook. First 2 words of the interview, Democrats' fault. Holy shit. He's on the attack. Not my fault, QTE. Chuck Schumer in the war room watching the feed. He's good. He's running circles around us.
what are you doing as president to end the shutdown?
All we're doing is we keep voting. I mean, the Republicans are voting almost unanimously to end it, and the Democrats keep voting against ending it. You know, they've never had this. This has happened like 18 times before. The Democrats always voted for an extension, always saying, give us an extension, we'll work it out. They've lost their way. They become crazed lunatics. And all they have to do, Nora, is say, let's vote. All they have to do is let the country open and we'll fix it. They have to let the country open and I'll sit down with the Democrats and we'll fix it. But they have to let the country, and
So
you know what
your
they have
plan-
to do? All they have to do is raise 5 hands. We don't need all of them.
But you've been talking about fixing the healthcare
Sure,
insurance plan
and you
since
can't do it
2015.
because of the Democrats.
But
That's
since
right.
2015, you've said you'd
I've been
fix it.
talking about it for a long time. We almost did it. We were 1 vote short. We would have had great health care, much less expensive.
That wouldn't have been a new health care plan. That would have just removed the Affordable Care Act. Even that wasn't a plan. There still hasn't been a plan. And I know there's the concepts of a plan joke, but I'm being serious. There isn't some alternative. There isn't some brilliant alternative that's been proposed. I think there's a lot of rightful criticism of the Affordable Care Act, but Obama blew all his political capital and early momentum on that, and they got something done, and it does cover health care for a lot of people. Like, a lot of Americans rely upon it. In fact, in many states where they relabeled it to, like, you know, in Kentucky, they named it like Kentucky Care or something, people love it. They vote pretty highly to continue it. I think perfect is the enemy of good here when you criticize it. Like, there has to be a better plan. And I want to say in general, like, I think healthcare specifically, more than anything else, is one area where government involvement is like at a true premium. It's like, it's truly helpful, because I actually think tying healthcare to employment and to your employer gives gigantic advantages to bigger companies. They can offer these complicated health plans that smaller companies can't. And so it makes it much harder for startups and new companies to attract talent or people to leave and start their own thing. Healthcare is such a chain to certain jobs. Disentangling healthcare from employment is like a huge want of mine. I think it would dramatically spark entrepreneurship and innovation. But also, I do think, more important than that, I think the ballroom at the White House should be bigger. I want to stack rank this. Like, I do think we should figure out healthcare, I do. But I think the ballroom in the White House is embarrassingly small. And I think other countries are laughing at us if it's not bigger and golden. So, like, just don't mistake my words.
If those healthcare subsidies are not extended, premiums will double for many of the people that are on it. And I was looking into it. 3/4 of these people will see their healthcare premiums double. Live in states where you won in the last election. I mean, even here in Florida has the highest number of residents on Obamacare in the country.
And I'm saying we can fix it, Nora.
That's a great fact check. I think this is the reason why even some Republicans, the one I can think of is Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is kind of shocking. Yeah, but she's the one that is against the Republican side.
Double. Live in states where you won in the last election. I mean, even here in Florida has the highest number of residents on Obamacare in the country.
And I'm saying we can fix it, Nora.
That's a great fact check. I think this is the reason why even some Republicans, the one I can think of is Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is kind of shocking. Yeah, but she's the one that is against the Republican side of this shutdown because she wants the extension because her state has people whose premiums will increase, including, I think, her kids, she said.
That's their problem. Now, I happen to agree with something else. I think we should do the nuclear option. This is a totally different nuclear, by the way. It's called ending the filibuster.
But to do that, he'd need Senate Majority Leader John Thune to to change Senate rules.
Yeah.
When the stock market is doing well, that doesn't affect everybody. Not everybody's invested.
She should ask him, like, when the stock market was doing poorly, which is just the middle of this year, he was nonstop truthing that this was the Biden economy. That he'd just gotten started. This is the Biden economy. And now that it's up, it's like, oh, it's because of my incredible policies. It's like the stock market was up during Biden too. The disconnect between the stock market and Main Street has never gotten more wide.
What happens to your economic plan if the Supreme Court
Reapers could be
invalidates
good.
your tariffs?
I think our country will be immeasurably hurt. I think our economy will go to hell. Look, because of tariffs, we have the highest stock market we've ever had. Because of tariffs, 401ks at the highest level, and this is millions and millions of people.
That's not even closely connected. That's not even connected at all.
I think it's the most important subject discussed by the Supreme Court.
Makes
in
it so hard to
100
see
years.
I know your
my
time's limited,
autos
so I do want to
and
make sure I get
light
through
'em
more
up.
of these topics. Immigration. One.
Let's not just skip over that. That is 100% not true. The stock market's at all-time highs because we have a gigantic AI capex boom, spending on capital expenditures like data centers and energy build-outs and all that. Now, whether that will pay off or not is an up-in-the-air question. I obviously have made my opinion on that, but it's unknown right now what the result of that will be. But that is why we have this extraordinary amount of spending and growth at the top end of the market. It has nothing to do with tariffs. And if anything, tariffs would be slowing it down. There'd be a drag on that. There's no way to draw a
Got
connection.
bounced the fuck around.
Tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood. And the smash.
Before he goes on, I just want to say the polling on this. So Trump's handling of the border specifically is probably his single highest polling point. But even those who support his stance on immigration, not all of them, of course, but even those who do, are weakening in their support for the basically internal terrorism of the way ICE is handling internal deportation. The idea that it was about closing the border and then getting rid of like dangerous criminals has been replaced with like constant assaults on some American citizens, some peaceful people who've been here for 20 years, clearly non-violent, clearly non-criminals, people working dishwashing jobs. The switch from ICE to, these like Stephen Miller quotas has been markedly unpopular as more people find out about it, as more videos get out, as more people become aware. It is not well received. Not saying by everybody. Some people do support that still. And immigration broadly is still his best polling thing, which is why I still think the main focus should be on the economy. But it is, even this is weakening.
Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
You're okay with those tactics?
Yeah, because you have to get the people out. You know, you have to look at the people. Many of them are murderers. Many of them are people that were thrown out of their countries because they were, criminals.
Well, you promised in your campaign that you were going to deport the worst of the worst.
I think she's got the great question here, which is like, that's not what's happening. Everyone is aware of that. Everyone is aware it's not, number of murderers was not enough to hit the quotas, and so it's become something else.
Is it your intent to deport people who do not have a criminal record?
We have to start off with a policy, and the policy has to be you came into the country illegally, you're going to go out. However, you've also seen you're going to go out, we're going to work with you, and you're going to come back into our country legally.
When will you declare mission accomplished on immigration?
Did it?
Well,
I need a
oh my god,
because he said in July some wild shit like
he's
we
so
don't want
good.
to do anything where we're taking the workers off the farms. If a farmer's willing to vouch for these people, I think they're just gonna have to say that's gonna be good. You know, it's just a weird double talk. Obviously, there's like Republican donors who own major farms that are now impacted because they don't have a migrant labor force. And so he's appealing to them, but then also appealing to like this, I don't know, this like blood and soil type rhetoric. And then there's no coherent plan here. I am frustrated with people that think that it's like, it's something that'll bring them more job opportunities or something. I've seen some of that popping up. But I promise you, the economy is not going to suddenly start thriving. It feels like what it feels like the language used in Japan or something, when they're just trying to find a scapegoat.
But I've done a much better job on crime than I thought. The crime numbers are way down, even though we have a lot more people in our country that really shouldn't be here, and many of them are stone cold, hard criminals.
The president has ordered the National Guard to fight.
It's like this
Why is my fucking
balancing act where he has to constantly remind you how dangerous it is and how there's criminals around every corner trying to kill you, but also reminds you, because he's president, that he solved it all. It's like he's got to run the campaign speech to scare you, but also recognize that he's currently the leader and has near absolute power.
How is this
control
the
the House, Senate, Judiciary. So it has to also seem like there's major progress.
There we go.
This past Tuesday, while speaking to American troops in Japan,
almost made us
you talked
lose.
about U.S. cities that are having trouble with crime, and you said, if we need more than the National Guard, we'll send more than the National Guard. What does that mean, send more than the National Guard?
Well, if you had to send in the Army or if you had to send in the Marines, I'd do that in a heartbeat. You know, you have a thing called the Insurrection Act. You know that, right? Do you know that I could use that immediately and no judge can even challenge you on that? But I haven't chosen to do it because I haven't felt we need it.
So you're going to send the military into American cities?
Well, if I wanted to, I could. If I wanted to use the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act has been used routinely by presidents.
Not
And if I
routinely.
needed
No,
it, that would
not
mean I could bring in
routinely.
the Army, the Marines. I could bring in whoever I want. But I haven't chosen to use it. I hope you give me credit for that.
Oh, I
Well,
meant
this
to
is
do
like
the other one.
it's like an abuser, dude. This is crazy. We
This
got an
leaf?
abuser president. That's crazy. Yeah. I could do it. I could hit you. I did. You should thank me for that. That's a crazy line of dialogue, dude. That's insane. Chad, I could ban you all right now. I just want you to know that. You should thank me for not doing it. I could. I'm not. I haven't.
The latest pardon was for a cryptocurrency tycoon who is known.
Are they gonna show the clip? So CZ here, head of Binance, arrested on securities fraud, charged, guilty, goes to jail, makes a massive donation, $2 billion donation to World Liberty Financial Stablecoin, which is Trump's son. $2 billion. All of a sudden he's
Oh,
pardoned.
I
They
eat.
asked Trump about it.
How'd that hit?
Okay, are you ready? I don't know who he is. I know he got a 4-month sentence or something like that. And I heard it was a Biden witch hunt.
In 2025,
First of all, if true, that's just as bad. That's just as bad because we've been doing this whole thing about the Biden auto pen and how he wasn't aware, and the president needs to be fully aware of what he's signing, and now it's like, I don't know who he is. I just signed it. He's free from jail. A criminal is free from jail. It's crazy. And by the way, I believe him. In that, I actually think Trump just signed it, and it comes from one of his dipshit kids. I actually think it's one of his kids, and David Sachs is just running a crypto grift in the open. I don't think he's lying, but I think it's just as bad.
how do you address the appearance of pay for play?
Well, here's the thing. I know nothing about it because I'm too busy doing the other.
But
I
he
can
got a
only
part
tell
in
you
it.
that.
But he got a
No,
part.
I can only tell you this. My sons are into it. I'm glad they are because it's probably a great industry, crypto. I think it's good. You know, they're running a business. They're not in government.
It is not fair, and it actually shouldn't be true in the grand scheme of things. But I'll be honest with you. In my heart of hearts, I dislike his sons far more than him, and I don't like him at all.
That is
Something
fair.
about his sons just pisses
Maybe
me
not
off every
Barron,
single thing they
but
do.
definitely Donald Trump Jr.
His snot-nosed crypto shilling sons are awful. They're so corrupt, and they don't even like. At least he's got the. He says some funny shit, and also I can understandably say he is good at marketing to a certain part of America. It's worked. He won the popular vote, but they wouldn't be able to do that. They have nothing. They couldn't even They couldn't do a rally. They couldn't do anything. All they could do is abuse their dad's connection to insider trade in the public. It's horrendous.
This trade war, though, was hurting Americans. I mean, our soybean farmers, China had stopped buying the soybeans. China was withholding these rare earth materials that you need for everything from smartphones to build submarines.
Sure.
What was the crucial thing? I mean, how tough of a
Well, when
negotiator
you
is
say
President
hurting,
Xi?
it was a temporary hurt. I was taking in a lot of money from China. We were doing very well against China. And all of a sudden they said, you know, we have to fight back. And so they used their powers. The power they have is rare earth because of the fact that they've been accumulating it and really taking care of it for a period of 25, 30 years. Other countries haven't. They used that against us, and we used other things against them. For instance, airplane parts. That's a big deal. They have.
So that's the point I want to talk about, though. That's why I have disagreements with this. Like, I think the truce, all in all, worked out better than Trump could have hoped for the 1 year. The idea that they're going to make progress. Trump says it here, but also Bessinger says it. Like, they've taken 25 years in China at China speed. China moves very fast on this stuff because they don't have two parties. You know, it's like an all-in thing. To build this rare earth mineral supply chain, refining, pipeline, technology, process knowledge, and in 1 year we're going to get out from under the thumb of that. It's like it sounds so absurd. Yeah, in the same breath, they take 25 to 30 years to dominate rare earths. They think the U.S. can somehow break
Can't
it
be
in 1 to
burst.
2 years. It's not only physically impossible, it's not doable with the amount of money we're planning to spend. So it's a kind of a race. And I just think China's moving much faster on building out their own high-end chip pipeline than I think we will on our rare earth metals. I hope to be wrong. I don't think a 1-year truce is gonna change that. What if we all just locked in for a year like if we did at Hart? I think we should. We should all lock in and start digging gallium in our backyards.
Mr. President, you just negotiated this 1-year trade deal with China. But as you know, the Chinese, they think in 100 years.
Sure.
They've played the long game, including on our own soil.
We play the long game too.
I don't like that framing, really. I think we have been uniquely short-sighted. But I don't like the way people talk about China where it's like they're so incredibly wise and long-term. Like, the more I read and learn about China, I'm like 5 books on China in now, and I read a lot about it. It's like they make a ton of fucking mistakes too. A ton. It's really, it's cell phones everywhere. Not cell phones, self-owns. We're just doing worse. I mean, one of the biggest examples of, this is like a little more out of date, but the so-called long-term planning, bro, was the straight line looking at the population graph and going, hey, we need a one-child policy, which is probably one of the most damaging government sociological experiments ever done. Like, literally one of the most damaging in human history. And that was a plan, a long-term plan that was a complete disaster, and they couldn't turn easily. They couldn't pivot easily out of it because of the way the government is structured. Like, there's flaws in both systems, and they often get expressed in different ways, but I think we're way more short-sighted than even our system used to be. We're barely thinking in not even 4-year cycles, bro. In fact, the way we usually have been going lately is it's 4 years. It's like the way Disney did the Star Wars sequels. You give it to one director for the first few years, and then a director that hates that person for the next one. They go completely f***ing opposite. They throw out everything from the last movies. There's absolutely no coherence. There's no long-term plan. It's completely flip-flopped. Everything is ripping up what the last person did. That's the bigger problem. Rather than like the incredibly wise Chinese emperor strokes his Fu Manchu and plans for 100 years. It's not really what happens.
How big of a threat is China?
It's like everybody else.
Damn, Brom took
We're a
so
threat
much
to them,
damage.
too. Many of the things that you say, we do to them. Look, this is a very competitive world, especially when it comes to China and the U.S., and we're always watching them, and they're always watching us. In the meantime, I think we get along very well, and I think I think we can be bigger, better, and stronger by working with them as opposed to just knocking them out.
I think that's
Who's
a
tougher
fantastic
to deal
answer.
with, Vladimir Putin?
Credit where credit's due. I think it's a fantastic answer. It's a great answer. It was a diplomatic answer. I thought it was good.
But just a little list of look at this. Wars.
President Trump wanted to make
I brought a
sure
list of
we saw the
wars.
list of 8 international conflicts. He said...
He got a picture of himself. Wait, is it a picture of the tweet?
Trump wanted to make sure we saw the list of 8 international conflicts he says he's been able to end since returning to office. The commander-in-chief has directed the U.S. military to destroy at least 9 vessels in the waters off Venezuela, killing more than 36 alleged drug smugglers. U.S. lawmakers, including at least 4 Republicans, have questioned the strike's legality.
I have a lot to say about this. I'm actually very frustrated with it because I'm a person who deeply, deeply, deeply wants Nicolas Maduro to be out of power in Venezuela. But I don't want it to happen like this. This is possibly the only way it could happen where he can come out looking like it's so frustrating that he gets to act like he's defending his country. Nicolas Maduro is so deeply corrupt, such a horrendous leader, but it just has to happen internally. That's what it has to happen. It has to happen internal. You can't have the military come in and force a regime change and not inherit a whole mess of problems. It's a proven track record. It's American propaganda, dog. Dude, if you think Maduro is a good leader, you're a idiot. I'm telling you right now, straight up. And you also, I think, are a little bit, there's like a subtle hint of racism or something. Like, you think people can't self-determine? You think the Venezuelan people can't be responsible for their own autonomy, that they can't understand, that they don't like their leader, they're not happy with it? Like, I find it to be I actually hate that line of logic. I think the people that do it on the internet are horrendous. I think it's paternalistic. That's exactly what it is. It's paternalistic. I find it honestly rancid. I don't like this type of, the people that think just because a leader is against America, they must be good, I find to be extremely online, is all I'm saying. Extremely online. He's horrible. He is a horrible leader. I mean, literally, I saw Deep Dive. This is from Armando, which is like a Venezuelan news source from people who are under like siege in Venezuela. They were talking about his, it's not Snap, it's Clap, I think. Their Clap food program they have with like this horrendous, they showed the videos from the moms in Venezuela. This horrendous, powdered, disgusting milk because the middlemen have been siphoning off all of the money. It's so bad in Venezuela right now. It's so bad. So I'm very frustrated. But this is not what I want to happen. This doesn't help.